Fun we had yesterday, all the dreams dashed. Never mind. Lots coming up on the show this morning, and I know you'll want to have your say on it. Hundreds of litres of heating oil accidentally pumped into a Bedfordshire couple's home. Wow. Find out why and what can be done about it in the next half an hour. And the last bookshop in Watford is to close. Are you missing bookshops from your high street? Here's a question. When was the last time you bought a book from a bookshop? And Australian DJs make a prank call to the hospital where the Duchess of Cambridge is staying. Health bosses say they're embarrassed. Did you find it funny, or did the radio station go too far? 08459 455 555.
BBC Three Counties Radio.
This Australian thing, I'm not a massive royalist. I quite like them. I'm not massive, but I heard this thing about these Australians doing a prank call. Prank calls, let's be honest, they're not funny. They stopped being funny with Noel's funny phone calls, which I think ended in about 1984. Since then, they have been very, very tedious. I've done some myself, and they're awful, unfunny, lazy. And guess what? You don't do it to a pregnant woman who's actually quite sick during her pregnancy. Australia. So I'm kind of virtually declaring war on Australia on this show. I don't know if I have the power to do that, but I'm doing it. Can we get... If you're an Australian... And I know we have a huge Australian community that listens to BBC Three Counties Radio. If you're an Australians, and apologise. OK? And we'll say no more about it. 08459 455 555. And if you thought it was funny, if you missed it, basically, two Australian DJs, they sound crazy, mate. They sound crazy. Phoned up the hospital where the Duchess of Cambridge is staying, pretended to be Prince Charles and the Queen and a corgi, and almost got put through to her. Did you think it was funny? Were you there going, oh, fair play, that was excellent? Or did you think it was outrageous? Treasonous? Is treasonous a word? Yeah, it is now. Treasonous will do. 08459 455 555. You can text as well, 81333. Start your text 3CR. Or, and boy oh boy, if there was ever a reason that the WWW was invented by that bloke, go to the Facebook page, picture my haircut. The haircut's up there, kids. Facebook.com/BBC 3CR. I once heard someone on this station, I think it was when David Prever was here, phone up with a web address, okay, and so he said, let's say it was David, I don't know. Okay, so what's the website? And the guy went, HTTP, and Dave said, I tell you what, tell us off there and we'll... Yeah, some people do that. Some people give the HTTP : // Anyway, did you find the royal prank call hilarious or outrageous? 08459 455 555. And also, if you're an Australian, phone up and apologise for the sins of your countrymen. Now, a retired couple from Bedfordshire say their house needs to be demolished and rebuilt after 500 litres of heating oil was accidentally pumped into the foundations. Accidentally, wow. Trevor and Elizabeth Piggott had to move out of their bungalow last Christmas and are still living in rented accommodation. We can speak now to our reporter, Justin Daly. Good morning, Justin.
Morning, Ian.
Well, this story sounds incredible. I've not quite got my head around it. What happened?
Absolutely fascinating. Well, Trevor and Elizabeth Piggott, they live next door to a house in Little Billington where heating oil is used on a regular basis. Now, around a year ago, there was a mix-up with the delivery of the oil, and 500 litres of toxic kerosene was pumped into the wrong pipe. It was pumped into the foundations of their house. Can you believe that?
Ouch, that's incredible. How have they cleaned it up?
Well, this is the problem. The Piggotts have arranged for the removal of most of it, but they claim that you can still smell chemicals and kerosene in every corner of the house. I'll be going to the house a bit later on to smell that for myself. They say they've had an oil expert to see the damage, and they've recommended an entire excavation of the ground floor of their £800,000 property. Now, they say this would probably cost more than completely demolishing and rebuilding the house. They maintain the smell cannot be removed by repairs or refurbishment of the property. They say they cannot live there because the smell of these toxic chemicals is so overpowering, and since last Christmas they've now been living in rented accommodation.
Who's going to pay to fix this? Surely it's the bloke that pumped the oil in, you would think.
You would think so. It's very, very complicated, this. Now, the company who caused this damage, GB Oils, well, they have accepted liability liability for this. Well, now it's being argued between their insurance company and the Piggott's insurance company.
The insurance company battles.
Yeah, it all gets very technical. The Piggott's, they are claiming damages in excess of £300,000 from their insurance company. That's Lloyd's TSB. The problem is, Ian, well, Lloyd's TSB, they say the house can be repaired and restored as it is. But the couple, they completely disagree. They say it probably needs to be demolished and rebuilt. They're now taking this battle to the High Court. We have had a statement here from Lloyd's TSB, who insured the house. They say in a statement, "We are confident that this property can be restored to its original state with no requirement for demolition based on the advice that we have received from oil experts." So it's fascinating, it's complicated, and the family will be joining us live on the programme after 7.
And you're going to go to the house and have a little sniff?
Yes, I will be, but I'll be very, very careful, because from what I've been told, it's pretty much like a crime scene. It's all roped off outside. This was their dream home. They've been there for 14 years, now living in rented accommodation. So I should be going there, speaking to them and finding out just how they feel today.
Justin, can I give you one word of advice?
Yes.
Don't smoke anywhere near that house. Don't light any cigarettes or matches. Justin, we'll speak to you later on. Thank you very much.
Across beds, hearts and bucks, this is Iain Lee on BBC Three Counties Radio.
Wow, doesn't that sound awful? It's the story making most of the front pages today. The Chancellor's autumn statement. Labour are accusing the government of hitting working families as well as the unemployed with a real terms cut in welfare payments. The Chancellor, George Osborne, says benefits will increase by 1% for each of the next 3 years. That's lower than inflation. Announcing the measure in his autumn statement, he said it was fair.
Fairness is also about being fair to the person who leaves home every morning to go out to work and sees their neighbour still asleep living a life on benefits. As well as a tax system where the richest pay their fair share, we have to have a welfare system that is fair to the working people who pay for it.
The Coalition says the move will save £3.7 billion, which will go towards reducing Britain's budget deficit. But the Shadow Treasury Minister, Rachel Reeves, says it will also hurt thousands of people who have jobs.
The people who are going to lose out from these changes are people who are in work on modest incomes. 60% of the people who are going to be hit by those changes are people in work, because it's not just out-of-work benefits that are going to be hit, it's tax credits as well.
Lee Healy is a benefits expert from Income Max. He says that the changes will affect a wide range of people.
Yes, it affects job seekers and the long-term unemployed, but it also affects lone parents and couples with children. It also affects working families on low incomes, and it also affects disabled people that are too sick to work, with the employment and support allowance also only going up by 1%.
Well, Business Secretary Vince Cable admits he's not comfortable with cutting people's benefits, but the Liberal Democrat says the state of the economy means it's necessary.
I'm not comfortable at all, but, these are very, very difficult circumstances. Actually, welfare payments for people who are out of work rose substantially last year, but this year they're below inflation, though they are increased. Other vulnerable sectors are being helped. The pensioners, for example, are now getting an award more than inflation.
Ministers also point out that under the Chancellor's mini-budget, low earners will pay less tax. And drivers are being helped after George Osborne scrapped a planned 3p a litre increase in fuel duty due to be introduced next month. Give us a call. That prank call to the Duchess. Funny or a bit out of order? Got a tweet from Fibber about the prank call to our future Queen. Ha ha ha. Ha 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 ha. You should be calling the hospital and asking them to apologise on air. Australian people aren't responsible. Well, Fibber, yes they are. It was Australians what done pretended to be our Queen and phone up the hospital and start this whole... They basically declared war, and I'm making the call. Doesn't mean anything. Morning! I don't believe... It's Iain Lee, BBC Three Counties Radio. Now, I heard this story yesterday, and, it got me angry for a couple of reasons. One, I just don't think it's funny. I don't think prank calls are funny. I think that they are the answer for the lazy disc jockey. I just think they're rubbish. And also, we don't phone up pregnant women who are not very well, do we? And do prank phone calls, do we? Is that what we do? No, of course we don't. Well, 2 Australian radio DJs impersonated the Queen and the Prince of Wales to trick hospital staff into giving them an update on Kate Middleton's condition. The chief executive of the private Edward VII Hospital says he regrets that the Duchess of Cambridge's privacy was breached. Well, BBC Three Counties reporter Jessica Cooper has been following the story. Good morning, Jessica.
Morning, Ian.
What can you tell us about this?
Well, as you said, this happened in the early hours on Tuesday morning. It was 2 presenters from the Sydney-based radio station Today FM. And what they did, I've listened to the recording, they phoned, they said, we've got a phone number for the hospital where Kate Middleton is being treated for this severe morning sickness as she's in the early stages of pregnancy. They said, we'll ring up and see how far we get. I think they were taken by surprise by how far they got. After speaking to one person, they were quite quickly put through to a nurse who had been treating the Duchess of Cambridge, who then went on to update them on her condition, talking about whether she had been retching or not, talking about whether she had been cleaned up that morning or not, whether she had had a wash, etc. So giving out quite personal details. And they seem to have been taken by surprise what happened, and the hospital has said that confidentiality is taken very seriously. Their telephone protocols are now under review. And Today FM, the radio station, said it was surprised to be put through, but it does sincerely apologise. But of course,
it says it apologises. But then if you go to their website, it's like, listen to the prank call that shocked the world. It's all of that kind of stuff, isn't it? They're bigging themselves up quite a bit.
Exactly. They have got a huge amount of publicity about this. It's being talked about across the world. I know that the recording is really popular on YouTube. So as a result, they are being talked about, and even though they say they're apologising, they've got lots of publicity from it.
Jess, you're in Luton this morning and you've been speaking to people about whether they think the call was outrageous or hilarious. What have they told you?
Well, it is what I was expecting, really. It's the kind of topic where people have an instant opinion and it's quite divided. Some people immediately think this is outrageous, and they think about if it was their family member, how would they feel? Other people think that this is just a funny joke. And this is what people have been saying to me in Luton this morning.
Basically, I think that was wrong, definitely. And if it would be my personal issue or problem, I would be really disappointed about it, because it's kind of personal life. Everybody wants to have, some secrets. I mean, we all do. So it is definitely wrong. It's definitely wrong. I would definitely be disappointed, very disappointed if it happened to me.
Are you surprised, given the stature that Kate Middleton is, that she's a member of the royal family now, that the people were able to get through and find out the information about her?
That's really bad. As I'm saying, all the royal information should come out from them whenever they want it. That's really sounds wrong for me, because people never know for themselves. Is it how it's going to happen? And so yeah. I think it's definitely wrong.
I think it was a bit foolish. No harm done. Personally, I think the nurse was a bit naive. Simple as that. You don't get Queen and Prince Charles doing that sort of thing. So.
How would you feel, though, if it was a member of your family and that happened?
Probably laugh. Because I really think it's a harmless thing. A bit foolish. It depends. People are more sensitive than others. But no harm done, and I think the nurse is a wee bit naive at the end of the day.
Really appalling. They do it all the time, the Aussies, so it's just poor. We shouldn't go there ever again.
When have they done it before, then?
I think there was something in the paper a year or 2 ago that they phoned somebody up. I don't know who it was, I can't remember, but they did do it before. I certainly remember. Was it the England manager or something like that? So they got history, so...
What do you think about hoax calls in general? Are they ever funny?
No.
But a lot of people are quite divided on this. Some people think that it is quite a good joke.
Yeah, until it's done on them. Then it's not so funny. So I just think it's bad.
I wish we had a prince called Prince... He was brilliant, wasn't he?
I was like, Charles, you want to say Charles?
Jess, I've just been sent a tweet that there's me bad-mouthing prank calls and saying they're unfunny, haven't been funny since 1986. Lee has tweeted me, Ian, you saying prank calls are rubbish? Really? And then he's put the phrase, is it Ghostbusters 2? And about 6 years ago... when I'd split up with a girl, I was a little bit lonely and a bit bored. I pranked, remember those channels, or those late night quiz shows where you could phone in and you had to, guess a word? Mm-hmm. Well, I would phone them all up and go, yeah, is it Ghostbusters 2? Whatever it was. Now, it doesn't sound funny on its own like that, but let me just, I'm going to tweet some of those links because it is actually hilarious. So I do have kind of a soft spot for the prank call. I've just been reminded. But we don't phone up sick pregnant women, do we?
No, I don't think we do, and I think it's fair to assume that the majority of people in Britain will think that this is a step too far. I don't know if the radio station assumed that they would even get that far, but there have been questions asked about the nurse and whether she should have assumed something was wrong a bit earlier, because if you hear the recording, the person impersonating the Queen is talking about corgis. Oh, Charles, please control the corgis.
Oh, it's ridiculous.
It's kind of over-exaggerated. I don't know whether the Queen would do that if she phoned a hospital, or even if she would phone a hospital herself. So quite a lot of questions being asked.
Jess, thank you very much for that. We got an email. Says, Ian, the Oz prank only happened because not enough security was in place at the hospital. However, I do not condone this episode, and the couple guilty of this offence should lose their jobs. Off with their heads, I say. They're typical of the set who think this sick joke is funny. What a grotty world we live in now. Well, I want to hear from you this morning. 08459 455 555. Well, what do you think? Is it funny? Was it funny? Or did you think it was a little bit, just a bit of fun? Or did you think it was outrageous, ridiculous? 08459 455 555. You can text as well, 81333, starting your text 3CR. Yes, I did phone up these, they got rid of them in the end. They sort of banned them. There were these channels that late at night, they'd be one channel, then they'd turn to like a phone-in thing, and you'd have a slightly vacuous presenter stood in front of a board with 10 blank answers, and you would have to, things like quiz call and things like that, that's it. And you would have to, it would be films, it would be, what kind of stuff would it be? It would just be films with dogs in, or films with something and something. Is that vague? Basically, it was like Wally Webb's What Am I Thinking competition. You would literally have to phone up and guess what were they thinking. And I would always phone up, and it cost me a fortune. Man alive, I was lonely. It cost me a fortune because they were premium rate lines. And I would get through and go, yeah, I'm really excited. Is it Ghostbusters 2? Now, it doesn't sound funny on its own, but trust me, I'm going to follow me at Iain Lee. I will tweet a couple of the links. It is actually very, very funny. Trust me on this one. Trust me. 08459 455 555 was the prank call to the Duchess's hospital funny. And listen, if you're an Australian, come on, take one for the team, phone up and apologise, please. Thank you.
The BBC in beds, hearts and bucks. This is BBC Three Counties Radio.
Morning. Lots coming up in the next half an hour, including when did you last buy a book from a bookshop? I've bought two recently. I bought one with my dad for my little boy on... When did I go to Gloucester? Tuesday, I think it was. And I bought a book in New York City. Barnes & Noble. New York City. I was even queuing outside a bookshop. That's how bored I was. I bought the autobiography of Peter Criss. Anyone? The drummer from rock band Kiss? No? OK, well, I bought that. So I've bought a couple of books recently. I do tend to buy them online because they're cheaper. When did you last buy a book from a bookshop? The last bookshop in Watford is due to close. Waterstones says it's for commercial reasons. And do you remember that we told you about the traffic wardens in Kings Langley? They were parking in disabled bays whilst dishing out tickets. We had a word with the council and they promised they'd do something about it. But have they? Well, I'll tell you in the next 20 minutes. Come on, Australians. Be man enough to phone up. Let's be honest, we're probably still asleep. 08459 455 555. Phone up and apologise for your treasonous countrymen. Goodness sakes. Shame on every single one of you. OK, I've tweeted on @Iain Lee. I would never dream of doing it through a BBC account. A couple of prank calls I did about 7 years ago, 6-7 years ago, to these late night quiz shows. One of the questions was things beginning with T. Just like the sunny morning light. And I phoned up and go, is it Ghostbusters 2? They normally took it in quite good spirits. You can have a look at Iain Lee and you can go and see a couple of links. So I'm now slightly embarrassed by me dissing the prank call, because it turns out, in fact, someone's posted on a Facebook page, Iain, You're the king of prank calls. Well, no, hang on a second. I don't think I am. I do, dear listener. If you could see me now, you'll just see a bit of yellow and white on my face. That is indeed egg that is rolling down my face. Now, come Christmas Eve, there won't be any bookshops in Watford, other than the charity ones. I'm a big fan of charity shops. I'm always in the charity shop having a rummage around through the books and the records. Waterstones in Watford is shutting down. All of the staff are going to lose their jobs. The company says they're being forced to close because of commercial reasons. But is it the end of the road for bookshops with the explosions of the internet, Amazon and these digital book readers, Kindles and what have you? Well, here's what these people think in Watford.
I read a lot, but I use Kindle.
Right, so I suppose for you don't go into bookshops anymore anyway?
No, not very often nowadays.
It doesn't surprise you then that another bookshop's closing?
No, it's not. Don't surprise me at all. You know, so many of them closing down everywhere.
It's an excellent bookshop here. It means that there's not a bookshop.
So where will you...
Readers.
Well, this is it. Yeah. Where do you go? What happens to you?
Because that's where I would normally go to buy a book. Yeah.
You do?
Yeah. I would be struggling because Smiths wouldn't have what I would be after.
They're very specialist, aren't they,
yes.
I guess?
Yeah, so...
And what about Amazon? Don't fancy that?
I do, yes. I do use online, but if I don't know a book, I want to have a look. Yeah.
That's true.
So,
and why do you think Watford? Because there are others in the area, St Albans, Hitchin, they're still open. Why do you think here in Watford they're closing down? Illiterate people that just don't read, perhaps?
Oh, I'd hope not. I don't know. So why they've made that decision, but I'm saddened, yeah.
Don't buy books.
Don't buy books.
No.
You go to the charity shop, buy a book.
Do you think that's what people do nowadays? They just
yes, I think so.
I mean, yeah, because price of paperbacks or whatever. Yeah, I mean, go in there 50 pence.
Whereas you're looking at $6.99.
Yeah, yes. You only read it once, don't you?
So you're not surprised that bookshops are going down the Swanee?
I didn't know that, actually.
Do you go there often?
Not that often, no, to be perfectly honest.
No.
I normally get my books online, but I think it's a shame.
Yes, no more bookshop other than second-hand shops now in the town.
Disappointing here, not good for the economy. Yeah, probably to go online with the internet and go to charity bookshops, I think so, without a doubt.
So reporter Serena Farrow there speaking to the citizens of Watford. Well, Tony Marr owns an independent bookshop in Welwyn Garden City called The Bookshop. Morning, Tony.
Morning, Ian. How are you?
Yeah, good, thank you very much. You had to go bust last year, is that right?
Well, I put my previous business, which was Marr the Bookseller. We've been in Welwyn Garden City for 18 years. We put into liquidation last year. Mainly because we just didn't believe that the business would be a going concern going forward.
But then you've got another bookshop. What's caused you to change your mind?
Well, it's not really changing our mind at all. I mean, what we've actually opened is a new bookshop, which is a slightly different concept to a traditional high street bookshop or general bookshop that we had before. I mean, the previous business, was an extremely successful business. We opened in 1995, and I mean, we had enormous economic pressures for a business. I mean, one of those being, you're tied into a 25-year lease, which is obviously you sign that with open eyes when you do that. But the problem, or my main problem and issue with landlords is that we have this escalating rents, which are way out of line with inflation, and it makes the economics of selling books on a high street totally different.
What's so different about this new bookshop you've got?
Well, we opened a totally new concept, which what we wanted to be was more aggressive on price-wise.
Yeah.
So whereas before we were a general bookshop, we had every single new book in, we now have a representation of new books, but really what we do is discount every single thing that we sell in the shop, and discount aggressively where we've got good terms from publishers.
And why do you think that bigger bookstores like Waterstones are going into decline? Because a lot of them are closing now.
Well, I think the story's a bit unfair on Waterstones. I mean, Waterstones are a fantastic business.
Oh, of course, yeah.
Hundreds of branches around the country. My suspicion, I don't know this, but my suspicion in Watford would be that their lease probably has come to its end. I know they've probably opened... Well, they would have had a 25-year lease, which probably started in around 1988, 1990, so probably it's due for, or is going to expire shortly. And probably commercially, they decided that with the level of rents nowadays, it was not right to renew that lease. I don't think it's a reflection on Waterstone's business at all.
How much of a threat are online booksellers like Amazon and things like that? Because I'll be honest, quite often, I'll be in a bookshop, and go, oh, look, that looks good. Let me just check, see how much it is online. And then I'll order it online while I'm in the bookshop.
Well, a lot of people do, and in fact Amazon have had an active policy in America of encouraging people to go into bookshops, use the bookshop as a showroom, and in fact were, at the end of last year, giving people an incentive to basically buy the book from the bookshop online, which there's been great uproar with over there. But I mean, actually, the economics and where people buy books has changed massively. Interesting, when we closed the last business last year in '95, last year was 2011, we actually looked at the business and the way the market had changed. And actually, 1995, when we opened, coincidentally, was the same year that Amazon started in the US. And suddenly books became available online. But actually, since that day, and arguably in 1995, you could argue that 100% of book sales would go through the high street or traditional high street bookshops, including the chains. And since then, we believe probably over 50% of that market hasn't disappeared but moved away to other channels. The internet, supermarkets have massively grown their market share. And also now the advent of e-books, not just the Kindle I hear you mentioned earlier, but obviously other forms of that.
Oh, I hate those blooming things. I want to hold a book. I want to fold the pages. I want to smell an old book.
Well, lots of people do, but the problem is that every single 1% of people who do that, there's another 1% of your potential market that you're aiming at. So actually 50% of, should we say, 1995's high street business has now moved away from traditional high street booksellers. So the economics of a general bookshop on the high street are totally changed, and with that, there's massive growth in the occupation cost in the especially in the shopping centres, but also on high street.
Tony, what book are you reading now?
What am I reading at the moment? Actually, I'm rereading, and it sounds really boring, but this is a book called In Sam We Trust by a man called Bob Ortega, which is actually the story of Walmart and its beginnings in America. Actually, a fascinating story because Sam Walton, who built up Walmart, was a genius and had such foresight. It was unbelievable. But it's a story about how clever he was, but also then how scary the might of the conglomerates and the growth of conglomerates in the high street, and how they can destroy small towns and cities, which happened in America and is, sadly to say, happening in this country as well.
Tony, you've sold it to me. It's Tony Marg, who runs an independent bookshop in Welwyn Garden City called, yeah, you've guessed it, The Bookshop. Best of luck with that, Tony. Thank you very much. Dear listener, what was the last book you bought from a bookshop? The last book you bought from a bookshop. My last two were the autobiography of the drummer from rock band Kiss. I know. And a book about animals for my little boy. My dad kind of bought that, so last one you bought. Now, let's get the weather with Elizabeth Rizzini.
Hello, good morning to you. It certainly is a very chilly start to the day today. Possibly some more wintry showers again. Had to get that in at the end of the forecast.
We missed you yesterday. It was snowing, Elizabeth, and you would have been in your element.
I know. I would have been really excited. Well, I was really excited, of course. Even I woke up to find a little dusting of snow. I know. It's quite exciting, isn't it?
Oh, don't ever take a day off again, okay? Thank you very much, Elizabeth. Very quickly, some of you have been buying books from bookshops. On Twitter, Scott Balcony says The Psychopath Test by John Ronson. It's a good book, that. And Joseph Dudley, The Master and Margarita. Not a clue. And Lizzie Dilly says, I bought a book from a shop called Father Christmas Needs a Wee. Oh, dear. Lizzie. That's been a bit quiet from Australians phoning in. Come on. You owe us an apology. You've let the side down. If we don't get an Australian phoning in by 9 o'clock to apologise, this is literally war. Literally war. 08459 455 555. Well, it turns out loads of you've all been going bookshop crazy. Why are bookshops closing down? Matt bought a Game of Thrones. My mate's going to be in the series of a Game of Thrones. Yeah, I know. He plays a man, right, who... I've never seen it. I've got no... So spoiler alert, maybe. I don't know. He plays a man who can send his mind into an eagle. Does that make sense? Does that sound the kind of thing that would happen in a Game of Thrones? Yeah. He can send his mind into an eagle and then, I guess, fly and stuff. Cheryl bought 50 Shades of Grey ages ago. Nick says the Beano Annual 2012. Look at you! Don't send in your rude jokes, for goodness' sakes. You can't buy that magazine in a bookshop. So just stop it. Stop it. 08459 No, hang on. What's the phone number? Oh God, on my brain. There's some 5s in it and a 4, and I know there's a 9. And definitely 08459 455 555. Thank you. Isn't that funny? I had the brain freeze there. If you want to give us a call, we're desperately looking for an Australian to call in and apologise for your shameful, shameful behaviour. Now, we recently told you, last week I think, about traffic wardens in Kings Langley who are accused of parking illegally while they're dishing out tickets. The MP for Hemel Hempstead, Mike Penning, says he's got photographs of enforcement vans parked in disabled bays, across gateways and in bus stops. And there was a particular problem with wardens parking in the disabled bay outside Boots. I told Julie Laws, Cabinet Member for Parking at Dacorum Borough Council, that she needed to do something about it.
We instruct our civil enforcement officers to park. Well, they are permitted to park in parking restrictions to carry out their duties.
Julie, take off your council hat for a second and talk to me like a human being. Come on, let's have a conversation, for goodness sakes, right? Tell them to stop parking in that one disabled parking bay outside a chemist.
We do advise them to...
No, don't advise them, tell them! You are responsible for parking. You're the council member responsible for parking. Tell those wardens not to park there.
I think I just did say earlier that I would speak to them and ask them and inquire about this incident and inquire as to why that did happen. And Ian, I'm very happy to come back to you and explain that to you, why that particular incident occurred.
OK, Julie. Well, listen, can we check up on it in a week's time and make sure that they're not parking there anymore?
I will be able to advise you more then, yes.
All right, we'll speak to her. Isn't that interesting there? She said that she was happy to come back on. Well, has she come back on? You'll find out in a second. Before that, though, let's speak to Jeff Falkins. He runs Dalling & Co in the Village. Morning, Jeff.
Good morning.
It was a heated discussion.
I gather it was, yeah.
Well, the question is, the thing that we focused on specifically with Julie was the disabled parking bay outside the Boots. Are they still parking there?
Oh, absolutely not.
Have they stopped?
Oh, yeah, not at all.
This is a victory!
Absolutely, they're a good council. I mean, to be fair, I think you're getting in touch. I don't think, to be fair, the council was really aware of what was going on.
Right.
And I give them an awful lot of credit for having done that. They've been around, the warden's doing their job. But anybody else in the village just told me, what I've seen, they're parking in the local parking areas, like the parking lots that are in the village. Albeit sometimes in the double yellow, but at least they're out of the way and they're not obstructing. They're not getting in the way of fire engines, ambulances, and disabled people. They're parking in bus bays or sort of flooding the laws they're upholding. And I give the council a lot of credit. Dacorum has always acted really well with a lot of things, and this actually has just restored my faith.
Then Julie Laws from Dacorum Borough Council, I thank you. And listen, you heard there, Jeff. She said she was more than willing to come back on the show.
Yeah, I give her an awful lot of credit. I'm not surprised, though.
Well, no, hang on.
I'm tooting their trumpet now, but they generally are really good folks.
You can toot your trumpet, Jeff. She ain't come back on the show. She refused to come on the show. Oh. She declined to come on, but she sent us a statement. Now, I've decided I'm not going to read any more statements from councils unless I really have to. So have a listen to this, Jeff. This is our lovely BBC Three Counties cleaner, Ollie, reading the statement from Dacorum Borough Council.
Thank you for the opportunity to come back to listeners about our civil enforcement officers carry out their duties in Kings Langley. I've now looked into the concern raised about the enforcement officer parking his moped in a disabled bay, and I'm satisfied that he did not park inappropriately. By the nature of their job, parking enforcement officers need to go to places where parking is difficult in order to enforce the parking restrictions that are in place for the safety and convenience of all road users. When carrying out their duty, there may be times that officers are required for safety reasons to park in restricted areas. However, we advise staff to consider other road users and park respectfully at all times. I'd also like to take this opportunity to reaffirm my offer to Mike Penning or any other listeners who may have concerns about parking enforcement in Dacorum to talk to Dacorum Borough Council directly so that we can work together to give residents the best possible service.
Directly. Don't go to BBC Three Counties. Thank you, Ollie, our cleaner. Well, Jeff, it seems to have worked, but she's still saying there they can park in the disabled bay if they want. Jeff, would you be our eyes on the street for us and just keep a little nose out for this?
Well, we're certainly keeping an eye on it because it would. I think that's absolutely an absurd statement to say that in the carrying out the duties to safely enforce the activity, and we watched 3 cars with disabled stickers on that particular occasion not able to park. So I don't know what they consider inconveniencing somebody, but they certainly are. As I said earlier, they're not. Essential services, and they're making money, and they're the agent that Vinci Parking is making money, and I just think that's wrong.
Jeff, well, listen, they've stopped for the moment. Let's celebrate that. That's fantastic. But the statement seems to imply they might start doing it again. So, Jeff, when they do, I think they think we're going to let this go. We're not. If they do, Jeff, give us a call, get in touch. Be won't let this one go. Don't say you're going to come on the show and then bottle out of it. Dearie me. But don't get council members. Listen, come on. Don't say you're going to come on the show and then bottle out of it and advise our listeners to bypass us. We've seen what happens when they do that. Nothing. I like the pause she does there. She goes, I'll do it in a second. Here we go. She goes, BBC Three Counties Radio. Pause. Thirst for news. It's a power pause. I like it. That's how she got the job, because of the power pause. Thank you, Cathy. Morning, this is Iain Lee, BBC Three Counties Radio. It's cold, and I can't find my gloves. I'm on a glove hunt today. Glove hunt. I'm going to go and buy some. You don't need to know about that, but just a little bit of colour, isn't it, really? It just feels like you're getting to know me a bit better. Oh, he hasn't got gloves, cold hands. Must be a nice guy. Thank you, Cathy. Morning, this is Iain Lee, BBC Three Counties Radio. It's cold, and I can't find my gloves. I'm on a glove hunt today. Glove hunt. I'm going to go and buy some. You don't need to know about that, but just a little bit of colour, isn't it, really? It just feels like you're getting to know me a bit better. Oh, he hasn't got gloves, cold hands. Must be a nice guy. Lots coming up in this hour of the show, including hundreds of litres of heating oil accidentally pumped into a Bedfordshire couple's home. Our reporter Justin Dealey is there to find out just how bad it really is. And if you want to hear Dealey sniff, keep listening. A hospital is left embarrassed after a prank call by Australian DJs. Did you find the hoax call to the Duchess of Cornwall outrageous or hilarious? Duchess of Cambridge, not Cornwall. Yeah, shame. Let's not give her different parts of the country. It's Cambridge, only Cambridge. And a Bletchley mum is worried about a mental health unit being built next door to her home. Do you think she's right to be concerned? 08459 455 555.
BBC Three Counties Radio.
You're fired. Whoever wrote The Duchess of Cornwall has failed the royal test that I insist all of my staff take. And honestly, if you're an Australian, phone up and apologise. I'm not going to make your life hard. I'm not going to make it... If we do not get an Australian, or... We've been doing this for an hour, no one's called in. Someone doing an Australian accent. I know, BBC, probably not allowed to, but what the heck, they fired first. Sir, they shot first. Either an Australian or someone doing an Australian accent. I want you to phone up and apologise, please. Otherwise, if we don't get that by 9 o'clock, I am declaring war on Australia. And I can do that. 08459 455 555 is the telephone number. Now, I find this story is incredible. A retired couple from Bedfordshire say their house needs to be demolished and rebuilt after 500 litres of heating oil. 500 litres of heating oil, was accidentally pumped into their foundations. Trevor and Elizabeth Piggott had to move out of their bungalow last Christmas and are still living in rented accommodation. Well, we've sent our smell and oil correspondent Justin Dealey to the house. You're there now, aren't you, Justin?
Yes, Ian, I am indeed. I would describe this property as a crime scene, to be quite honest with you.
Wowzers.
Coming here today, it's all cordoned off. As you walk into the house, the warning signs are there. And joining me live here in our radio car is Trevor and Elizabeth Piggott. Trevor, this all started your hell last December, the 29th. Did you know straight away that something was wrong?
Yeah, I saw the tanker pull up outside, and because of spillages earlier, the hedge was dying back, so I was going out to see the driver and met him come running up the drive asking me where our tank was, and I said, we haven't got an oil tank, we're on gas. He said, well, I've just pumped 500 litres of oil into it.
And this was meant to go to your neighbour, not your property, so your house straight away had toxic fumes going through it.
Yeah, I just shouted to Elizabeth, because we could see the oil going down the side of the house, and I'm saying to Elizabeth, can you smell it? Can you smell it? And she said, yes, it's terrible.
Yeah.
And this was in minutes.
So clearly you've been living in a rented accommodation. Elizabeth, can you just describe our home for our listeners? Because I said to Ian a moment ago, from my point of view coming here this morning, being impartial about this, from what I can see, it looks like a crime scene. How would you describe the inside of your home right now?
Well, it's covered in polythene sheeting. There are trenches, excavations inside, a few excavations. They've been full of water and contamination for 11 months now. There's been a hole through the external wall of our bathroom, which has subjected the house to damp. It's heartbreaking.
Because Christmas coming up, of course. This happened last Christmas. You must be dreading Christmas.
Well, Christmas won't be what it was, put it that way.
Trevor, you're taking this to the High Court. Now, it does get quite complicated here because GB Oils, the company who delivered this oil to your next-door neighbour, they've accepted liability for this. Now, you're saying that your property effectively needs to be knocked down and rebuilt, but the insurance company is saying, well, we think we can deal with this as it is. So how do we currently stand here? Because it's you against your insurance company, effectively, isn't it?
Yes, but the consultant, environmental consultant that is advising us, has said that there's no way they can guarantee to remove all of the contamination. And our lawyer says that we have a very, very strong case.
So you're going to be taking this to the High Court. You've had enough. It's been going on for far too long. Do you think you will win that battle? Do you think that you'll get what you want? You want your house knocked down and started again? Because when you go into your property, you're saying the oil is still there. I don't care what insurance companies say to us, there is still oil in our property. We cannot live there.
Yeah, it's been registered with the environmental department that the events happened. So any search of people wanting to buy the property will uncover that. So it's the stigma that goes with it.
Elizabeth, life is full of twists and turns. You had this property on the market a couple of years ago. You had an offer for it, but you didn't accept it. It's that case, really, of thinking what might have been at this moment in time, isn't it, really?
Yes, quite definitely. I mean, Trevor had been very poorly at that time, and after heart treatment he was able to come off all his medication, so we decided to stay put. We had an offer, but we decided to stay put. This has been a fantastic location. We have 9 grandchildren. This has been their private park. We have 5 acres of land here, and obviously we weren't really in a hurry to leave. Trevor's condition improved, so we decided to stay put for a little bit longer, and now this has happened.
So you've had 14 years of happiness. This was your dream property. You don't want this property knocked down. You wanted it as it was. You'd done absolutely nothing wrong. There you were last December, just minding your own business, enjoying Christmas, and you get this. It's been hell for you the last year, hasn't it?
Yes. We don't... All we want is to be replaced, put back in the position we were before this happened. We don't... It isn't our aim. We wouldn't choose to have the house knocked down, but if that's what it takes to remove all the contamination, that's what will have to be done.
OK, just lastly, very, very briefly on this as well, I've got a statement here from Lloyd's TSB, who insured your property. They say that we are confident that your home can be restored to its original state with no requirement for demolition, based on the advice that we have received from oil experts. Very briefly, what's your reaction to that?
Well, the last report we had from Lloyd's TSB's oil expert says, and I quote, "We are not trying to eradicate all contamination, for that is feasible and not necessary. We are looking to reduce this to an acceptable level of risk." That clearly doesn't return us to the position we were in before this incident occurred.
Thank you very much indeed for your time. Much appreciated. There you go. Joining us live on the programme, Elizabeth and Trevor Pickett from their home here. I say it's their home. It's not anymore. They haven't been living here since last December. It's all cordoned off, and of course they're not happy with that statement, and they'll be taking this battle to the High Court. So certainly more to come on this story, Iain, on BBC Three Counties Radio.
Justin, excellent stuff as always. Thank you very much indeed.
This is Iain Lee on BBC Three Counties Radio.
Now, 2 Australian radio DJs impersonated the Queen and Prince of Wales, and a third impersonated the Corgis to trick hospital staff into giving them an update on Kate Middleton's condition. The chief executive of the private Edward VII Hospital says he regrets that the Duchess's privacy was breached. Well, Malcolm Brown is a journalist for the Sydney Morning Herald. Morning, Malcolm.
Good morning.
What's been the reaction to this in Australia?
Well, it's been widespread interest. There's been a split between amusement on the one part and condemnation on the other, in particular the intrusion of the privacy of any woman who is in the early stages of pregnancy and going through what might be rather traumatic times. But certainly there's not the uproar that you would find that is in Britain. It's much more muted.
The royal family, they're not that liked in Australia, are they?
Well, there's certainly a growing Republican sentiment. In 1954, when I first saw a royal, there was a huge upsurge in national feeling. That's not so. And the last visit by Charles and Camilla was the reaction was quite cool and moderate. The people were polite to them, but it was not a high-rating visit at all. There is, on the other hand, a great interest in Wills and Kate, and it's got the fairy tale element about it. It's perked up interest in the women's magazines, and I don't think anyone in Australia would want anything other than a good marriage and a successor.
Do you think that the station involved Today, I believe they're called, that there'll be any repercussions for them?
Oh, yes, well, that's being debated now. There's certainly a mechanism within Australia for complaint to the radio station, 2Day FM, and now if people are not satisfied with that response, they can then appeal to a newly created body, the Australian Communications and Media Authority, which has powers to adjudicate. Just what offence these two have committed is up for debate. Obtaining information by false pretences, I don't know if that's an offence at all. Certainly gaining a benefit is, but the two they're now basking in their notoriety, and others have done similar pranks in the past, such as at the APEC conference 3 or 4 years ago, when some media people managed to smuggle Osama bin Laden lookalike into the security apparatus. That was greeted with a lot of humour.
Malcolm, listen, thank you very much. Can I put you on the spot, sir? We are desperately trying to find an Australian to apologise to the people of Britain. Would you like to do that?
No, I cannot put myself on the spot as representing the people of Australia. All I can do is to express very great regret at the upset that it must have caused.
That's a step forward. Malcolm, thank you very much indeed for your time. That's Malcolm Brown there, journalist for the Sydney Morning Herald and all-round good sport. Thank you very much, Malcolm. Thank you very much indeed. 08459 455 555 is the telephone number if you want to give us a call. We've got a couple of texts and Facebook messages on that prank call. What them naughty Australians done. Iain, it's not a grotty world. This world is beautiful. Oh, we had a text early on saying that the world was grotty. It's the people in it that are grotty. The radio station should be ashamed. It was a thoughtless act. Katie may be royal now, but she's still an expectant mother in her first trimester. Prank calls can be funny, but not that time, says Esther. And on the Facebook page, facebook.com/BBC3CR. Hilarious. All that money on the security, and it doesn't work, says Trucker Steve. Iain, I find it outrageous and hilarious. I'm quietly amused, followed by thinking, maybe that's not right. That's from Helen, and Joni says, not funny, really. She's pretty ill, doesn't deserve that kind of prank. Having said that, you'd think relatives would be given a code word or something. You can't give the Queen a code word. Your Majesty, when you phone up, you'll say the word bollard, and that will give you access. You can't give the Queen a code word or anything like that. 08459 455 555. Now, a mum from Bletchley says she's concerned that her 2 children won't be able to play outside once a mental health unit is built next door to her house. It's been confirmed this week that a derelict pub on Wadden Way will be knocked down early next year, then building work will start for the rehab centre for men with schizophrenia and depression. Carmele Prieto lives on the other side of the boundary fence. She joins me on the line now. Good morning, Carmele.
Good morning.
What are you so concerned about?
Well, there are 3 main reasons of why I am concerned. The first one is if anyone has checked the patient description that is in Gambian's website, these patients will be sectioned under the Mental Health Act of 1983, specifically on the Section 3741. Which describes as is a patient that is put in the hospital due to a court order issued by the Crown Court, which imposes a restriction order. This restriction order is imposed to protect the public from serious harm.
Okay, that's point 1. Give us point 2.
Point 2 is that Gambian's reputation has been stained in the past. When I try to find out what was to be like living in a proximity of this kind of premises, I find out that Gambian didn't follow their own rules. They didn't treat patients as they should. That created that they didn't give one-to-one care.
Gambian is of course, I should just say for those who don't know, they're the company behind this centre, aren't they?
Yes. and the reputation as, if they didn't treat it properly, which implies...
We just have to be a little bit careful about what we say about them, accusations, because they're not on the show.
Well, everything is in the internet. You only have to go to
don't trust anything I read on the internet.
Well,
what's the third thing?
It's the papers.
Okay, the third thing, Carmele?
Yes?
No, is it the third point you're worried about?
This implies that shouting, screaming, panic alarms going on day and night, 24/7, and also that the patios, the site, the patios are really small. The site is very small, and the patios are really close to our properties.
Okay, Carmele. Well, listen, we've got Steve McNay from the mental health charity Mind in Milton Keynes is with me in the studio. Morning, Steve.
Good morning, Ian.
You heard a few of the worries there. Let's deal with two of those. What does it mean when people are sectioned under the mental health order? Are they dangerous?
Mostly not. Section 3741, Carmel is absolutely right. It's a Home Office section where people are supervised to ensure that they're compliant with their treatment and that they are looked after and supervised effectively. And I think part of the anxiety with anything like this is you just don't know what's going to happen. And I can totally understand where Carmela's anxieties are coming from, because this is something very new, very unknown, and people don't really understand what the situation is with particularly schizophrenia and depression, just what this means for them living nearby. From my point of view, people under section are actually far more closely supervised than people not under section. So in many ways, they're going to be very well looked after and very well supported to make sure that they are complying with treatment and doing what they need to do.
Another point Carmele was worried about was panic alarms and screaming and shouting going off 24/7.
Without knowing it, it's hard to say. What I can say with some surety, I've been working in mental health services in Milton Keynes for a number of years. There are 6 or 7 schemes of this type dotted around the city, and most people simply don't know they're there.
And are they as close to houses, to residential properties?
Absolutely, yes. Yeah. Most of them are bog-standard houses in their communities that happen to house people who have got some mental health needs.
Carmele, what exactly are you worried... Well, what are you worried about exactly? It's your kids playing in the back garden, is it?
Exactly. The site is really small. The building that they are planning is quite a bit large. Therefore, it's not leaving much space outside for the patients to do their activities. They're planning to do a therapy patio, fence with me. Therefore, my children, they got trampolines, they got climbing frames. They're going to be able to see through that 2.4 meter fence. So what I have to do is remove the trampoline, remove everything.
But what are you worried? What do you think they're going to see?
Well, they're
just going to see some men, aren't they?
Sorry?
They're just going to see some men.
No, it's not that. But I'm worried, and the feedback that I've got, I've never been living near a place like this.
No.
So the feedback that I got is what has happened in other places in this country, where this company is running these facilities.
Yes.
Therefore, my feedback is not very positive.
Well, what do you? I'm just trying to pin down. What do you think if your kid's bouncing on their trampoline and they look over the fence?
Yeah, what happens if one of them has an episode and start shouting, screaming, swearing? It's not something that has not happened in the past.
Okay, it's a good point. It's a good point, Steve. What if one of these gentlemen has an episode and goes off on one?
It may well happen. I think, part of my argument, I suppose, would be prior to this, it was a pub. I think there is probably far more likelihood of noise and swearing and drunkenness and aggression from a pub than there is.
Pardon, we may be working class people, but I think that comparing that to before it was a pub and it was worse, what happened? We don't deserve to live in a place better?
No, I'm not saying that at all, Carmela. What I'm saying, I suppose, is that...
No, I think that you left it very clear.
No, Carmela, let me just clarify.
Ambient told us.
I think my point was that wherever you are, there are times when people will act inappropriately, shout and scream and so on and so forth. What we're talking about here is a supported unit where when these things happen, there are people there to deal with them, rather than people being not supported, living on their own and wandering around the place shouting and screaming without any help, without any backup, and without anywhere for you to go when you've got concerns. I do honestly understand exactly where you're coming from and understand the just not knowing what's going to happen in the future is as much as anything something that's going to cause anxiety. I would encourage you to and I would encourage Cambion to work with you and the other and the other neighbours around to try and find the best way of this unit becoming part of the community that it's within.
Carmeli, what would reassure you? What would you like to see done?
I don't want you to take me wrong. I really know that I've been doing research on those illnesses, and I know that properly treated, there is no anything dangerous, and they can be really good neighbors, very quiet, and they integrate in the community really nicely. My concern is the reputation that Gambian has.
Okay, listen, I don't want to keep going. Carmeli, I really can't keep going on about Gambian just because they're not here. Are you worried that something dangerous is going to happen?
Well, of course, you only have the example in the same north, I think it was Doncaster as well, where a person with schizophrenia that wasn't treated properly killed a teenager in the park.
Steve, it's something dangerous happening. That's a decent fear.
That has not been treated properly.
Okay, that's
my point is.
Let me just put that to Steve. That's a decent fear to have, isn't it? Is that possible that could happen?
I think Carmeli's brought up a very, very good point. This is somebody who wasn't treated, and that's why I think the Section 3741 is quite an important part here. These are people who are going to have to be monitored and treated as part of the conditions of them being there. So I think it's unlikely that people are going to be untreated here, and therefore are going to have the necessary support and medication where appropriate, and talking therapies and all of those other things that go to make up positive mental health.
Steve, would you want to live next door to a place like this?
I do.
Really? You feel comfortable, would you?
I live next door to two of the big mental health units in Milton Keynes. I live on Eaglestone, and there's never been a problem for me. But then I come from a slightly different viewpoint, I suppose, because it's kind of what I do, Ian. So
why is there this, do you think, there's this fear around mental illness?
I think it's exactly the same as Carmeli's been saying. It's the fear of the unknown. I think it's really positive to hear that Carmeli's gone out and done the research and found out about these things. I was at the original planning meeting where West Bletchley Council, which is the area that we're talking about, had a public meeting, and some of the misinformation that was going around was really quite frightening. And I think what we get in the media particularly is the Doncaster situation where somebody with schizophrenia has killed somebody. 93% of killings in this country are people who haven't got mental health problems.
Yes, that's true.
25% of the population of Britain have got a mental health need. You know, you can do the maths. These are going to be people who are going to be well supported. I think that, we've worked with Cambion to try and say, look, these are the anxieties, these are the fears. You've got to engage with your community. You've got to talk to the people who you're going to be living next to. And I really hope that they pull their finger out and get this started.
I think that maybe, sorry if I may say one little thing, I think that as well is part of the problem. Gambian organised a meeting about 2 years ago when they were going to put the planning permission. We haven't heard since. They have completely abandoned the site. It's been live gas, live electricity, the pub, it's been squatters in there. So
Carmeli, have you been in touch with Cambion to see if they could perhaps organise an evening for all the neighbours to come round and express their fears?
I don't know how to contact them, but they know how to contact me.
Well, I'm sure that they have a website with an email or a phone number. Why don't you try and get in touch and say, look, we live next door, some of the neighbours are a little bit concerned, could we meet up one evening for a couple of hours and you do your best to reassure us?
I have done research in the website as well, and the only thing that they are there is to refer from the NHS to be treated. And I don't need to be treated at the moment. I may in the future.
We'll see how that goes. Carmeli, listen, thank you very much. We'll follow this story if we can, if you don't mind.
Yes, okay.
Okay, stay there for a second, because I think we might be getting... There is a phone number on their website, apparently, Carmeli, so why don't you try giving that a call?
As I said, I will prefer to wait for them to...
Well, no, if you're going to wait for them, they're not going to get in touch with you. Why don't you get in touch... You be proactive. Get in touch with them, chase them, and demand a meeting where they can do their best to put your mind at ease. Be proactive, Carmeli.
Listen, don't talk to me about proactivity. Please. I think that full working mum with children and dealing with all this, I think I've been quite proactive.
Okay, well, I'm just suggesting if you want to give them a phone call and see if you can arrange a meeting. Okay.
I might, but as I said, you don't feel like being proactive when you've been treating like that.
Okay, listen, come on, I've got to go. I've got to read a statement from Cambion. They didn't want to do an interview. They've sent us a statement. Cambion concluded the purchase of the White Hart site in the summer this year. We are committed to progress with the development of this site to build a specialist mental health rehabilitation hospital for men. We aim to start work on the site in 2013, and we'll keep the local community informed of our plans when they've been finalised. Listen, thank you very much, Steve, for coming in.
You're very welcome.
And putting forward the case there. 08459 455 555. I guess the question is, would you feel comfortable living next to a mental health unit? Permission to speak freely. I'd rather live next to that than a pub. I really would. I would have no interest in living next door to a pub. But a supervised mental health unit? How would you feel?
Text 81333. Start your message with 3CR. Text charged at the standard network rate.
This is BBC Three Counties Radio.
Morning, 7:33. It's flipping cold out there. Lots coming up in the next half hour, including people living in part of Luton are fed up with drug dealers, pimps and prostitutes. They've had enough. It's a story we've been following very closely on this programme. The councillors who represent Hightown are going to be joining me on the show next. I'll be finding out what they're doing to tackle the problem. And on a completely different tangent, as we often do, when did you last buy a book from a bookshop? The last bookshop in Watford is due to close. Waterstone says it's for commercial reasons. You can send us a text 81333 or give us a call 08459 455 555. Now, in a story we've been following here on Breakfast, and one which every time I speak to the residents living in Hightown area of Luton, they really do have some amazing stories of what they have to put up with. It's the growing problem of drug dealing, pimps and prostitution.
You see every kind of human dereliction that you could never believe was possible, and having sex up people's front doors. It goes on round the clock, so people taking their children to school can see it, and this is what we have to live with, and this is what Azalea and the councillors should come and be. This is where they should be putting their sympathy with us, and they should see this is what their clients do to us.
Once it starts getting dark, you're always having to look out of who's coming into the shop. You're always having to look out the window, and there's also customers who come in complaining about people coming into their cars when they're stopping. You face verbal abuse from them sometimes, and even at times there's been physical as well. They bring in all sort of crimes into the area.
Well, on Monday night, a meeting took place between residents, the council and the police. Roxana Whittaker and Andy Malcolm are the councillors who represent Hightown, and you're at Monday night's meeting. Morning. Thank you for coming in.
Morning.
Now, you heard that audio, Roxana. People there harassed in their cars, residents finding people having sex in their doorways and in the rubbish chutes, people taking their kids to school can see it. What are you going to do to stop it?
Well, we've been part of a long-term strategy since we've been councillors back in May 2011, working with partners, the police, the council, anyone else that is able to help with that sort of thing.
Don't read that, don't read it. You're reading something. Why are you reading something?
And we're committed to working... we're committed to continue and working on this problem.
Speak to me. Let's have a conversation. So what are you going to do about it?
We're already working with the police.
Yeah.
And that's around, and as you heard some from Ollie yesterday, around trying to catch the curb crawlers.
Yeah.
Trying to get the drugs off the street and out of properties in Hightown.
Yeah.
And the most exciting development for me recently has been the police committing a full-time sergeant to the post specifically to look at this. And the big thing from the council point of view is the new developments around the ASBRAC process, which is the antisocial behaviour committee to help people who are suffering with antisocial behaviour. So it's very victim focused, and obviously that's exactly what we need for Hightown, for the residents that are suffering.
Andy, what are you doing to stop the prostitution there?
Well, as Roxana has already outlined...
Well, she mentioned the curb crawlers, but not the prostitutes.
Well, so what I would say is you've got to take a broad and balanced approach, and Mike Colborne, who's the Chief Inspector in Luton, is very good at talking about this. You've got to take an approach which actually solves the problem over a long-term period.
Right. I don't want a prostitute having sex up against my door or in my rubbish chute, so what are you going to do about that?
Well, so on the rubbish chutes, that is something the council can do something. So lots of these are police issues, but there are some council
so what are you going to do
issues
about
that? So with regards to rubbish chutes, we have got bin men now with keys, and they should be able to lock them, and that's only something that has recently come about, so we're still in the process of getting that into a situation that's actually working, because at the moment some of them are sometimes being left open, and obviously we're still talking to people about that. Well, hopefully, very quickly, we should be
Before
keeping
Christmas?
going back to the... I'm not going to be able to give you specifics.
Well, you're the council. I was hoping you would be able to give me specifics. I don't know why that seems like a silly question to ask a specific of when you think you'll be able to stop prostitutes having sex in rubbish
It should
chutes.
be working from now.
Right.
But there are always going to be people who forget to do things that they're meant to do.
You can understand why people are upset
I'm
about
sure you
this.
forget to do things in your job.
I would not forget to lock a chute if I knew that there were prostitutes having sex in it and it was upsetting the local residents. I wouldn't forget that, no.
Well, so...
I forget my car keys, I forget things like that. I don't forget to stop prostitutes having sex in bin
Well, that's not part of your job, though, is it? So, what I would say is we are talking to the council...
I don't know why you're finding this funny, because the residents aren't finding this funny.
I'm not finding this funny.
But you're making slightly flippant comments about it, and the residents are... Have a listen, this is what the residents said about the council.
I've spoken to Roxanne. It took quite a long time for her to actually get to see me. I spoke to her, and she mentioned that, that she's having talks with the police. It was just after that, when I spoke to a few other people, I found out that these councillors, so-called councillors and MPs, actually run some sort of organisation which gives these street workers a place where they can come and eat and clean and food, and sort of, I feel encourages them. And I was disgusted with that. I really am appalled that, on the one hand, they are... saying that they are trying to help the area, but on the other hand, they're part of it.
Well, they're Roxana Whittaker and they're Andy Malcolm, and yes, I've had a lot of contact with them, and they just see me as I think an eccentric thorn in their side, and in my view they do not care really. Well, I wouldn't say don't care, but they're not really interested in what goes on with us who have to live with the vice that they are so keen to help.
And we do feel like prisoners, and we don't feel like the police or the council care about us having to be prisoners, but I feel like prey.
Strong words.
Yeah, very strong words. What I would say is we are very interested in the residents, and we are here to help and support the residents. We know, I think I recognise 2 of the 3 voices there, and we've met, well, Roxanne has met the first person, we've met the second person together, we've done a walk around in their area, we've looked at all the issues, and we're going away and trying to do things about the things that we can do things about as councillors. It's as simple as that, really.
Residents have spoken, Roxana, on saying, how can you work for the residents of the High Town on the issue of prostitution when you work for the charity in High Town that supports prostitutes with clothes and food?
I don't see any conflict in those two roles.
Do you not, really?
Really, absolutely. There was no way I would do it if I didn't. I think the important thing to focus on...
They would say you're encouraging prostitution.
I know, and I think that comes from a misconception of what Azalea does.
Tell us what Azalea does.
Azalea is a Christian charity, and we work to share the love of God with women and children involved in prostitution. And I think the evidence shows we've helped 6 women exit. That means they're not working on the streets, they don't live in Luton anymore, they're not using drugs, and it's part of the broader strategy to get this problem away from Hightown, and the 2 things go hand in hand.
Why can't they just be taken off the streets? Would you like someone having sex up against your front door, as we've heard that's happened?
Absolutely not.
So why can't we
be
stop
taken
it?
off the streets? Because prostitution is only a finable offence, so the police could take them and fine them. Right. It only exacerbates the problem because it means that they need money to pay their fines, and what are they going to do?
So we shouldn't fine prostitutes for having sex up against doors.
It's not an approach that works in the long term,
so
and that is what the police talk about, taking a broad and balanced approach.
The approach is just let it get on with it.
No, it's taking a broad and balanced approach to address the issues of drugs that are very much behind this, and
that's going to take years to sort it.
And the supply issues with regards to the punters who come and buy sex on the streets.
Right.
Those are what the programme seeks to address, and antisocial behaviour issues that the women can be involved in.
If I lived in the street...
we're seeking to address all of these in a balanced way.
I'm going to finish...
That means that we can... let me finish.
Well, no, because what you're saying is this is going to take years. This is going to take years. If you're going to try and help their drug problems, this is going to take years. There are people having sex up against people's doors. There are women who can't walk out of their houses because they are being approached and asked if they're working. There are people whose kids have seen prostitutes having sex. That is not appropriate.
Mike Colborne.
That is not appropriate, is it?
It's not. Mike Colborne.
Then how are you going to stop it?
He was very explicit at the meeting on Monday that if residents or anyone feels vulnerable, like they are in danger, then they need to call 999.
But they've been doing. But they've been feeling vulnerable for years.
And that is a police issue.
They've been feeling vulnerable for years. This hasn't changed. This is not getting any better.
Well, we've been around for 18 months and we're doing everything that we can to change it. And we can't do anything about what's happened in the past, but we can do our best to work for the residents now.
With a slow, long-term plan.
There is no quick answer to this. We want a sustainable solution.
Andrew, it obviously isn't working, is it? Because there are still people having sex in shoots. There are still people having sex up against front doors. So it's not working, is it?
But it's what works over the long term.
How long is the long term?
Alleviate the long.
You're talking years.
The problem.
We're talking years.
But it works. Like
over years.
There's research
so you got a
to show that this is how you address.
They'll
these
be 12
problems.
by the time it's finished.
But there's research to show that this is how you address these problems.
You should go and live there. Go and live there for a
we
few
live
months.
very close.
Go and have someone having sex up against your door. See how you like it.
How can I organise?
Of course we don't like it.
But then you cannot think it's acceptable to say to the residents, we've got a plan. Don't worry, we've got a plan. It's going to take years, but we've got a plan.
If you have a better idea, then let us know.
Lock them all up.
You've already explained how that happened.
It's a finable
Go and find them. Go and find them. Keep finding them. Keep finding them, and then they'll stop doing it.
No.
That isn't what happens.
That's not what happens.
If you look at your research and your books, go and live in the real world. Go and live in the real world.
Research is based upon the real world.
June, you live in Hightown. Morning, June, are you there?
I am listening to it.
What do you reckon? Speak to Andy and Roxana.
Morning, June.
Morning, Andy. Morning, Roxana.
Hi, June.
Right, there's not much I can put to it that they don't already know about. Like I say, I've had this, I live over the car park, I'm going to come open now, I don't care who hears it and who knows me now. I live over the car park, I've been here since 1990. I have had sex workers, drug addicts, people sniffing the heroin or whatever it is they do, all underneath my window. I've got a 23-year-old grandson that I brought up when his mother died when he was 1, who has continuously looked out my window. Nan, what's that lady got her legs out for? Nan, what's that man doing to that woman? I've had men underneath my window masturbating.
Well, June, listen, they've got a plan, though.
Oh, they've had a plan. I've had a plan since 1970, when I was only a little bit younger then, right? And I've gone to all the councillors, all the MPs, you name it, from 1990. I've been told to keep away from my window, get the kids away from the window. There's no need to. If you can't get a sleep at night, you can sleep during the day. I don't know how when I was going to work, but and it's gone on and it's gone on and it's gone on. I would not go to Roxana because I haven't got no faith in MPs because over the years they haven't done.
Well, she's not an MP. She's a councillor.
Yeah, a councillor. And I had a word with a few of the residents, and they all said the same thing. June, don't bother going to them. They don't do anything. And I said, right, I'm going to give them the benefit of the doubt. I'm going to go to them and see whether they do help or they don't help. I went against all the residents, and I went to Roxana, and I went to Andy. Now, I've done most of my correspondence on the phone with Roxana. Andy, I met in the Ardale one day coming out of Tesco's. I said, Andy, can I have a word? Oh, I'm going on holiday tomorrow, June. Can you take it over to Roxana? Roxana's there. She knows I'm not lying. Right? So I've done all my dealing. Well, I won't say dealing. I think it's about the last 6 months with Roxana.
And June, listen, we'll come back to you in a second. I've got to go to the travel. We'll come back in a second and find out exactly what happened. Now, joined in the studio by Roxana Whittaker and Andy Malcolm, councillors who represent Hightown. Thank you very much for coming in. And on the line, we've got June, who lives in Hightown. June, let's get to the crunch. What do you want the councillors to do?
Well, like I say, I'm the one that does ring Roxana. I'm supposed to get update on it, which I don't. They're supposed to come back and give me update, but they don't.
You're pulling a face there, Roxana, as though you're not supposed to give an update. Is that right?
No, I don't give an update. Unless
June, hang on a second. You're saying you don't need to...
Of course that's not what I'm saying. I'm saying that I do update her, and June and I have had lots of contact.
When was the last time you updated her?
Well, there was a meeting on Monday, which she was at.
Okay, so you've been updated, June?
There was a meeting on Monday, and I was told to shut up and get outside, and I walked outside with Tony Savano from the council.
Roxana, you're pulling faces at that?
I certainly did not tell June to shut up.
You did. You came, you left your seat, you came right through the meeting, you came over to me because I was whispering down Tony's ear because I'd got the paperwork in front of me to prove I was telling the truth and they hadn't got the proper information, and you left your seat, came over with your authority hat on, which you really shocked me, Roxanne. I took
Roxana,
you under my wing like a daughter.
June, calm down. Andy, yes.
Can I just say, at that point in the meeting, June had asked and raised this, and we'd actually moved on to someone else raising another issue.
Right. So what was said to June?
Because June had moved over to talk to someone, I think Roxana went over and said, could you have this conversation
Roxana, what did
outside?
You say? You tell us what you said.
So that we can have one meeting where the person
Roxana,
whose turn it is can raise their
I asked
question.
if either they could have the conversation later or have the conversation outside, because I wanted to make sure that all the residents got heard in the meeting.
June, what did you tell us now? What do you want them to do?
Basically what I want them to do is to keep in touch with the council. I mean, I am in touch with the council with a guy called Tony Savano. Mm-hmm. I was told at least 6 months ago when I took this problem up with Roxana, and Gavin Shuker actually, and I was told from that meeting, straight away, as soon as I mentioned it, I want the car park closed at night so I can have a sleep because medically I am really bad. And I was told straight away from Antisocial, they won't close car park. Straight away, without a question.
Can the car park be closed?
We
won't close the car park.
June, hang on a second.
We are going through a process looking at whether the car park can be closed. Some residents or some people who use the car park have objected to it being closed overnight.
Prostitutes?
So, no.
Okay, because they are using it overnight to have sex in there.
But some people who use the car park who are not prostitutes have objected to it being closed overnight, so it means it takes a longer period of time. So we're working through a process to look at whether it's a wise thing to do or not.
Okay, well listen, June, thank you very much for coming on, June. We're going to follow this closely, don't worry. We spoke to the PCC Commissioner, we had Ollie Martin on yesterday. He's going to come back on the show in a month's time to with local residents, talk about what's been done. Do you two want to come on?
The problem with coming on the radio is that it advertises that there are women working on the streets.
Well, we know that. Everyone knows that.
Punters. Well, they don't.
Everyone knows that there are prostitutes out there.
More people who are listening to this will know now.
We're not an advert for prostitutes. That's a very weak argument. Would you like to come on the show in a month's time with some residents and speak to some residents? Yes or no?
We'll be in contact with residents constantly, and we encourage residents...
Answer the question. No. Yes or no?
But we encourage residents to get in touch with us and to contact us in all the different... formats that they can. Call us, email us, come to our surgeries on Thursday morning from 10am to 11am in Hightown. So if you can't make that, we're happy to come and meet you anywhere else.
So you wouldn't like to come on with Ollie Martin and a couple of residents in a month's time to talk about the situation?
No, because we want to tackle the solution, and we don't think that would be part of it, because all of those people we're more than happy to constantly be in contact with.
But by being on here, you can speak to all of those people and more in one fell swoop instead of dealing with emails and phone calls back and forth.
We don't need to talk to everyone. We only need to talk to the residents that are affected by this really traumatic problem, and we are in contact with them, and there are many different formats that we can talk to them in.
Can I just add one thing? At the meeting on Monday, some people raised issues with the High Street, and actually a bit of a good news story is since we've been councillors, we've also been part of a thing called a Hightown team, and we've managed to get £10,000 to provide some environmental and creative improvements to the High Street. So hopefully we'll see some improvements coming along the High Street over the next year or two.
We've got some daffodils coming along and some flower boxes, but we've still got prostitutes having sex against people's doorways, and women being hassled in the street, and people's children seeing prostitutes going on, and people seeing people have sex and take drugs in the car park. So that's still happening.
Well, we're addressing all of those issues with the police, but we're also doing other things, and I just wanted to point out that Hightown has also lots of residents.
Roxana, you don't fancy Andy? Do you want to come on in January?
I would agree with Roxana that it's actually unwise for us to come on again, because actually we're in contact with all of the residents that we've spoken to this morning, and if there are any other residents out there, we would love to be in contact with them and meet them, and happy for them to come to our surgery or to go around the...
Thank you very much for coming in this morning. It's appreciated. Roxana Whittaker, Andy Malcolm, councillors who represent Hightown, and thank you very much. 08459 455 555 is the telephone number if you want to give us a call on that.
Every weekday afternoon from 3, Roberto Perrone.
Do they mimic other things as well, other sounds?
Yes, they will. My parrot had a very nasty habit of farting.
Thank the Lord I haven't got a parrot at home.
So ginger is offensive?
It's red, not ginger, red.
I notice you're using the term red there, not ginger.
Roberto Perroni.
It's $4.99 a metre. So I said to the lad, I want 5 metres. He got a calculator on his balls, pimples on his face, and he went, £82.
£82?
I said, you what?
Can you do your sums in your mind?
Roberto Perroni. Weekdays from 3 on BBC Three Counties Radio.
Now, Waterstones moving on, he said, as the electricity in the studio slowly dissipated. Waterstones in Watford is closing down due to commercial reasons. It's the last bookshop to shut in the town, leaving only charity bookshops. The last day of trading for the big store will be Christmas Eve, meaning all of the staff will lose their jobs. But why is the demise of the bookshop so prevalent in the town after Borders only closed last year? Well, Richard Harrington is MP for Watford and also Chief Executive of the Chamber of Commerce in the town. He joins me now. Morning, Richard.
Good morning.
It's a shame that there won't be any bookshops in the town. There's nothing like wandering through a bookshop having a little browse, is there?
Well, that's absolutely right, Ian, but the problem is plenty of people wander through, but then they go home and buy their books on Amazon. That's the problem, and I'm very sorry about it, because I used to go to Waterstones a lot, but being honest with myself, I'd go to Waterstones, think, well, you know, buy a book or so, but when you get home, you think it's just so easy. You know, you sort of lie in bed or sit around and you can order books in 3 minutes and they're there the following day, and I'm afraid, unfortunately, it's just the way of the world.
It's interesting because it's happening in Watford, but in smaller places it's not happening like in Hitchin.
Well, I'm hoping, because the problem in Watford is there was no niche bookshops. It was just Waterstones, which are a very good general bookshop. But we're hoping with the development of the new Charter Place development, where there is ample space for smaller, more niche retail, that somebody will decide to open a bookshop. But at the end of the day, it works if people patronise it. And local people have got to decide, well, I'm going to go out of my way to buy a book from that bookshop because it helps local employment and the local economy. Fortunately, we've lots of small businesses in Watford and the loads coming into the town, but I'm really sorry there won't be a bookshop. What are rents like in the Harlequin? Are they a bit pricey, perhaps? They are. They're very high, and I think rents and business rates are a major obstacle to people for opening up shops. But at the end of the day, I think we all know it's the internet shopping and the discounts that people get, and Kindle and all of the other things that everyone's using. But you know, it's a bit like Woolworths. When they closed down, everybody was very sad, and then I go up to people and say, well, when was the last time you actually bought anything from Woolworths? Of course they hadn't, but they had an emotional attachment to it because it had always been there. But I'm very sorry about this. I feel quite sad about it, and partly to blame with everyone who hasn't bought enough from them.
Richard, what book are you reading at the moment?
I'm actually...
It's not a Jilly Cooper. It's not 50 Shades of Grey, is it?
I'm reading a book called Education, which is by Andrew Adonis, the last Labour Education Minister, which is a very good book. And if anyone's interested in schools and things, they should read it.
Richard, thank you very much for coming on this morning.
I speak to you.
There we go, Richard Harrington, MP for Watford. OK, well, we got a statement from Waterstones. They didn't want to speak, but they gave us this. While we're in the business of opening bookshops and keeping them open, occasionally we do have to close a branch for commercial reasons, which is the case here. We would like to thank our booksellers, whom we hope to redeploy to other branches where possible. Last book you bought in a bookshop, please, where you went into a bookshop, picked something up and went, I'm taking that bad boy home with me. Iain Lee, 8 o'clock, Thursday, it's cold. If you've only just tuned in, you've missed, you've missed a fight, basically. You missed a punch-up. You missed a brawl. I thoroughly recommend you go back to the iPlayer and have a listen from about 7:30. If you haven't got time for the whole show, listen from 7:30. Hey. Lots coming up in the last hour of the show before JVS comes in at 9 and does his thing, including... story you heard in the news there with Catherine. Hundreds of litres of heating oil has been accidentally pumped into a Bedfordshire couple's home. They say the house should be demolished and rebuilt, but they're having a battle with their insurance company. We'll find out whether they've got unrealistic expectations. A hospital is left embarrassed after prank call by Australian DJs. Did you find the hoax call to the Duchess of Cambridge outrageous or hilarious? And if you're an Australian, could you phone up and apologise, please? And what was the last book that you bought from a bookshop? You can go to facebook.com/BBC3CR. You can send us a text. 81333, starting your text 3CR, or, and there are a couple of lines free I can see on the screen in front of me, now's a good time to call 08459 455 555.
BBC Three Counties Radio.
A retired couple from Bedfordshire say their house needs to be demolished and rebuilt after 500 litres of heating oil was accidentally pumped into the foundations. Trevor and Elizabeth Piggott had to move out of their bungalow last Christmas and are still living in rented accommodation. Well, earlier on in the show, our reporter Justin Dealey spoke to them.
I saw the tanker pull up outside, met him come running up the drive asking me where our tank was, and I said, we haven't got an oil tank, we're on gas. He said, well, I've just pumped 500 litres of oil into it.
And this was meant to go to your neighbour, not your property,
Yeah,
so your house straight away had toxic fumes going through it.
Yeah, I just shouted to Elizabeth, because we could see the oil going down the side of the house, and I'm saying to Elizabeth, can you smell it? Can you smell it? And she said, yes, it's terrible.
Yeah.
And this was in minutes.
So clearly you've been living in a rented accommodation. Elizabeth, can you just describe our home for our listeners? From my point of view, coming here this morning, being impartial about this, from what I can see, it looks like a crime scene. How would you describe the inside of your home right now?
Well, it's covered in polythene sheeting. There are trenches, excavations inside, a few excavations. They've been full of water and contamination for 11 months now. There's been a hole through the external wall of our bathroom, which has subjected the house to damp. It's heartbreaking.
Because Christmas coming up, of course. This happened last Christmas. You must be dreading Christmas.
Well, Christmas won't be what it was, put it that way.
Well, you can tell they were very upset. The couple say the smell cannot be removed by repairs or refurbishment of the property, and they think it should be demolished. Lloyd's TSB, who insured the house, told us they're confident that Mr. and Mrs. Piggott's home can be restored to its original state with no requirement for demolition, based on the advice they received from oil spill remediation experts. Well, joining us now is insurance journalist John Guy. Morning, John.
Morning.
Does this couple have an unrealistic expectation on their insurance company?
Well, I think it really depends on what their contract is. But as I said, I think one of the issues there, of course, from Lloyd's TSB is that they're saying that they are confident they can carry out the remedial work without the demolishment of the house. And of course, from Lloyd's point of view, that's going to be a cheaper option.
It's that thing, isn't it? I've had friends who've done this where you have an insurance claim about something that's a little bit more technical than, you just bump your car, and the insurance company get one expert in, you get another expert in who says something contradictory. How do those situations resolve themselves? I guess you have to go with the insurance company's guy, don't you?
Well, I mean, the thing about it is the insurance company obviously are going to dig their heels in. But I would think, to be quite honest, the only way that's going to be settled, I suppose, is in the court of law.
Do people generally understand what insurance companies will pay out for?
I don't think they do. I mean, it's the age-old story, isn't it? Read the small print, but let's be fair on it, there's some print on contracts these days because it is a legal contract, and that therefore they have to cover all bases. That it would take a great deal of time, which is why you need a broker. I mean, a lot of the time, the best idea is go through somebody who actually knows what they do this for a living.
John Guy, insurance journalist, thank you very much indeed for that.
Call 08459 455 555.
08459 455 555.
BBC Three Counties Radio.
Nick Coffer, today, Thursday. I felt so sorry for Nick. He made a... listen, you dress how you want to please. You dress how you want to please, people. Let your freak flag fly. He made a bold statement yesterday by wearing a leopard skin blouse, and I was very polite when he came. I said, it looks like a fun top. Some other members of the Three Counties staff, Catherine Boyle, were actually quite rude. And then I thought, it's got away with it. It's fine. You wear what you want. I don't care. And then I was driving home, listening to the Jonathan Vernon Smith show. And Jonathan was doing like a link or something, and then just burst into this cackle. And he was laughing laughing at poor old Nick Coffer, who is one of the nicest people you can ever meet. He was cackling at him on air. Very, very naughty, I thought. There's a picture of it. Go to the Facebook page. You can have a look and make your own comment. Well, can I just say... No, listen, I don't mind. You wear what you want. I don't mind. I don't have the worst... Well, the second worst fashion sense here. But we have never had so many comments about a photograph on the BBC Three Counties Facebook page than we did for that picture. Facebook.com/BBC3CR. Bold choice, and I applaud bold choices. Anyway, Nick's on today between 12 and 3. He's at one of his most popular advice clinics from 12 as he welcomes back osteopath Deborah Battams, who'll be here to ease your aches and pains with advice and reassurance. What she won't be able to do over the air, and what I always see my osteopath for, she won't be able to click your back over the air, which is one of the gifts that God has given us, the ability for a man or a woman to lie on us, twist us, lift us, and make our back go click. She won't be doing that. But I've heard her, and from someone who suffers with back pain from time to time, it's a cracking listen. So Nick Coffer on between 12 and 3. Bookshops are closing. The last bookshop that's not a charity shop is closing in Watford. I want to know the last book you bought in a bookshop, because I've done that thing of going in a bookshop, looking at some books and going, I wonder how much this is online. Oh, I can save £5. I'll order it now. I'll have it tomorrow. It'll be I can wait a day. I did buy a book at the weekend in America, and I was with my dad, and he bought a book for my little boy. It's something great about books. I will never, ever succumb to these Kindles and these awful e-readers, whatever they're called. I want a book. I want a book where I have to lick my thumb to turn the pages. I want to fold the page over. I want to sniff an old book. Imagine sniffing an old Kindle. What's the pleasure in that? Will you imagine it? There's no pleasure in it. You get an old book. Phil's in Dunstable. Phil, do you like the smell of an old book?
Yeah, but I'm not sure when I last smelt a book, to be honest.
Listen, where are you? Are you near any old books now?
I've got a book in the back of my car, actually, which was second-hand.
Get it. Is it safe to get it?
I can try.
Get it. Get it, Phil. I want you to sniff this book live on air. This is what Marconi was dreaming of when he thought, if only there was some way of communicating verbal information. He's got what book is it, Phil?
Gerald Seymour, The Collaborator. My dad gave me this, actually.
Oh, it's a classic book. It's going to be an old one. Open it. Just let the pages fall open where they do.
Yeah.
Shove your face in.
It smells good.
Give it a big sniff.
Smells good, yeah.
Give it the sniff, Phil. I want to hear that sniff.
You hear that? Hello?
Sorry. Good for you, Phil. Well done. What was they do smell good, though. Old paperbacks in particular. What was the last book you bought actually in a bookshop?
Yeah, I bought a book last week, actually, with my fiancé in Waterstones in Milton Keynes.
OK, what book was it?
It was the title of it's 40,001 Baby Names.
Hey, whoa, hang on a second. Did you buy that for a good read, or are you a Phil and Mrs. Phil expecting?
Yeah, well, we're expecting, so...
congratulations.
Thank you. The idea is that we can... We've got a different colour highlighter each.
Oh, OK.
So then we can obviously go through the book and highlight the ones we like, you know.
Is this your first baby?
Yes.
OK, well, listen, congratulations, and I wish you the very best of success. It is the miracle. It's literally a miracle that this can happen. I have that book, 40,001 Baby Names. Why they got to 40,000 and went, we need one more name, I don't know. But we found it useless, to be honest, Phil, because we looked through it. It's just names. We would get lost in the number of names in there. There's too many names in there.
Yeah, I mean, actually, one of my favourite names is not actually in there.
Can I ask what the missing name is?
I'm not going to say.
Okay, no, you're keeping it all secret. Well done, good for you.
There is a section at the front of it that I found quite useful, just about how a name affects us through life and considerations when you're giving somebody a name, and how important that sort of step is. Well, in the whole process.
The thing you have to do as a prospective dad, Phil, is you have to do all the rhymes of the names, so that see if it rhymes, with anything rude. To see if they cut it in half. Is it easy to make it into a rude word? There's lots of things you've got to do because kids are vicious. So you want to give them as less possibility as possible. My wife and I, when we were naming our first boy, not so much our second, but our first, one of us would come up with what we thought was the name, the perfect name, and we'd text it and go, I've got it, we'll call him this. And the other one would write back going, I'm not so keen. It's a tough one to come up with a common consensus, Phil. I wish you luck with it.
Thank you.
Phil, how far gone is she?
18 weeks.
Oh, well done. Listen, you've passed that stage. Congratulations, Phil. What a lovely thing to look forward to. It's superb. It really is a miracle. I love it. We named our first boy in the end at a Fleetwood Mac concert. I know. He's not named Lindsay or Fleetwood or Stevie or anything like that, but we were just sat at the Fleetwood Mac concert and he's got 4 names. Yeah, I know. I have no middle name. We gave him 4. We put them together and we went, how about this, and this? We looked at each other and went, yeah, I think it works. And then we rocked out to the Mac. Yeah, totally. Yeah. Well, before we carry on the show, exciting news. We're joined in the studio by an Australian who's going to apologise for his country's outrageous behaviour towards our future Queen. Away you go, Bruce.
G'day, mate. I'm really sorry.
Thank you very much. If you could send in Jonathan Van-Smith now. He's gone. Jonathan, sorry about that. I just thought it was important that we did that.
So good you got a little Australian in.
A little Australian. He's a good-looking lad, 6'3".
Look at him.
Tall fella.
He's gone to put another shrimp on the barbie.
He's a flaming galah, I tell you that. For nothing.
Have you ever played that drinking game, Mrs. Mangle?
No,
Oh, you must come round, we'll play it.
OK, go on.
You have to have a group of people.
Yeah.
And you say, "G'day, Bruce." Yeah. And you say, "G'day, Bruce," and I say "G'day to Bruce." So you say, "G'day, Bruce," and it goes on like this. Every time someone makes a mistake, they then become Mrs. Mangle. And you have to remember who's Mrs. Mangle, and then it becomes Joe, and then it becomes Bouncer, and then another shrimp on the barbie. And before you know it, you've got a group of people, all with different names. You can't remember any of their names, and you just have to keep drinking.
But it's people like you are the very reason I stopped drinking. Because that just sounds... That sounds like really hell. And can I be honest, Jonathan?
What's that?
It sounds dead common as well. You keep exposing your roots.
It's one of those things you do right at the very end of an evening.
Yes. A game invented in 1987 as well, by the sounds of it. Mrs.
Good
Mangle.
old-fashioned alcoholic fun.
Oh, I really don't ever want to spend any social time with you. Whatsoever.
No, don't be like that.
No.
You like spending social time with me.
I do. I want to spend more with you.
I know. I might be going shooting against you, but not with you. Oh, sorry. That was the wrong thing just to blurt out like that, wasn't it? I've taken your breath away.
Are you seeing another shooting partner?
Well, a group of friends. Do you want to come?
No, not now. I don't think I can be trusted holding a gun in your presence now. I thought it was just you and me that went shooting.
Oh. Well, it was
you gun tart.
It was just a group of friends who said to me, "Oh, I gather you've done a bit of shooting." I said, "Yeah, it was good fun." They said, "Oh, we like it too. Do you want to come with us?" I said, "Yes, but I'll have to wear my patch."
You should have said, "No, I only go shooting with former television host Iain Lee."
Ah.
Unbelievable.
Sorry.
You've changed.
I'm really sorry.
You've changed.
I feel a bit bad now.
You should do. What's coming up on your show this morning?
On the Big Phone In this morning, I'm asking, do you feel the Chancellor is on your side? The Chancellor is insisting the measures in yesterday's mini-budget are fair and will get the British economy back on track. There'll be real term cuts to most benefits for the next 3 years after George Osborne admitted it's going to take longer than planned to eliminate Britain's budget deficit. Labour says his economic strategy is failing and hitting those on low and middle incomes hardest. Did you see the performance yesterday?
No, I didn't.
It was fascinating. I think Ed Balls was taken slightly by surprise.
Right.
Certainly that was the general...
There's a picture of Cameron and the Osborne laughing at Ed Balls on one of the papers.
Well, he wasn't... I mean, Ed Balls is normally, he's a bit of a bruiser, isn't he, in the House of Commons?
Bruiser Balls.
He seemed totally thrown off.
Yeah.
And he kept stumbling. He told the Chancellor that actually the deficit was coming down, and then but it actually meant no, it was going up, and it was just all... And that's why they were roaring with laughter at him. Yes. So... The Labour Party very much arguing that the Chancellor and the Prime Minister, they're like a couple of posh boys. They're using Nadine Dorries' line. Couple of posh boys.
Yeah.
They're not on the side of most people. Well, the Chancellor says, no, absolutely, we are. We are on the side of hard-working people. We are cutting the welfare bill. We're taking away benefits from people who don't go out and get a job. And we are supporting the hard-working people. Well, from 9 this morning, I want to hear your view. Do you feel the Chancellor is on your side? 08459 455 555. I want your thoughts on the big phone in at 9.
Mine? You looked at me as you said that, and you emphasised yours.
Well, I wasn't going to put you under that kind of pressure to have to answer that question.
Yeah, it's good. I don't know anything about it. It's a bit grown up for me. It's a little bit grown up.
Well, you'll be pleased to know, coming up at 10, I've got a sexual activist and porn star coming in.
Yeah, I'm back! So I'll listen to Radio 4 for between 9 and 10, if that's all right. That's all right. It's still BBC, and then I'll come back to listen to the dirty people. Yeah! Thank you, Jonathan. Enjoy your shooting with your other friends.
Bye.
Yeah, there we go.
Across beds, hearts and bucks, this is Iain Lee on BBC Three Counties Radio.
It is always... I shall be listening at 9, partly because we're contractually obliged to, but also because it is a cracking listen. Jonathan Vernon-Smith, if you've not listened before, I cannot recommend it enough. If you want to get in touch with his show now, you send him an email, jvsshow@bbc.co.uk. Now, this morning, we have been talking about whether the hoax call made to Kate Middleton's hospital was funny or just a step too far. 2 Australian radio DJs impersonated the Queen and the Prince of Wales, and the third impersonated the Corgis and managed to get information from the hospital where the Duchess of Cambridge is being treated for severe morning sickness. Well, Matthew York is originally from Buckinghamshire. He now lives in Sydney, Australia. Morning, Matthew.
Good morning.
What do British people over there think about this story?
I think, like most things, I think a lot of British people think they've gone over the line a little bit on this one. Really, it's a pregnant lady shouldn't really be in their privacy shouldn't be intruded like this.
That's the thing that's kind of got me, Matthews. It's not the fact it's the royals. I don't really care. It's the fact it's a sick pregnant woman.
Exactly. It shouldn't happen to anybody. So, and I think certainly since the wedding a couple of years ago, the Australians have sort of got back much more on board with the royal family. And really, I think now that they really think they've really crossed the line too far.
Is this typical of the Australian sense of humour? I'm trying to think of famous Australian comedians, and all I can think of is...
Paul Hogan.
Exactly, Paul Hogan, that's it.
There aren't really many, to be honest. It's... they basically... All the comedy on television here is British, to be honest.
Is this typical of their kind of humour, is to do this sort of thing?
Yeah, I mean, 9 times out of 10, the humour in Australia, people have a really good laugh, like at work and everything, but sometimes they really do cross the line, and say this radio station, it's not the first time they've gone over the top. Like about a year ago, one of the DJs for the morning show was banned for a month for making an insensitive phone call to somebody. So it's all about ratings, to be honest.
Have you ever listened to 2Day FM before, this radio station?
My wife listens to it on the way to work, but to be honest, as soon as the DJs come on, she turns over to another radio station, because what they talk about on the radio station is drivel, to be honest.
Well, let's be honest. So is pretty much this station between 6 and 9. I can't do.
Really? I haven't listened to it for a while.
It's better than you remember it. I'll tell you that. Matthew,
really?
What is a bloke from Bucks doing over in Sydney?
I left 7-8 years ago, travelling for 6 months, and basically ended up here just by accident, really, and ended up meeting my wife here. So it wasn't planned at all.
And are you loving it? Is it the dream?
Yes, I think so. Certainly, since I've met my wife, and we've just had a child 7-8 months ago.
Oh, congratulations!
Everything is perfect.
What's the weather there like right now, Matthew?
I'm looking out over Sydney Harbour, and there's blue sky, so it's not too bad.
Beautiful. We had snow yesterday.
I did hear that.
Matthew, listen, thank you so much for coming on. Matthew York, originally from Bucks, and he now lives in Sydney.
The BBC in beds, hearts and bucks. This is BBC Three Counties Radio.
We were talking about Hightown, and we had two of the councillors in, Andy and Roxana, whose last names escape me at the moment. I've got it on a bit of paper here. Andy Malcolm, Roxana Whittaker, who came in earlier on in the show, and fair play, they held their position. And I was just kind of wondering what you thought. If you live in that area, or if you know that area, what do you think about it? And also, what do you think about what happened during that interview? Well, Margaret is in Milton Keynes. Good morning, Margaret.
Oh, good morning.
What would you do to stop this problem of the prostitution?
I'd target the men that go to the prostitute.
Right.
I'd name and shame them. I would take photographs of their car. I would take photographs of when they're in the alleyways doing whatever they do.
You take a photograph of them in the act?
Exactly. And if they were anywhere near my premises, in my garden or in my doorway, I would get one of those high-powered water
guns.
Guns.
Water gun.
Yeah.
Water gun. Water
like
pistol.
what you do with the cats when they're messing in your garden.
Yeah.
I'd do that.
Hang on a minute, Margaret. Do you shoot cats with water when they're messing in your garden?
Well, yes, I would if I had a water pistol.
Okay, okay. So if someone was the prostitute was in your front door, you'd shoot them with a water pistol.
Yes,
And
from my bedroom window.
From the window.
A safe distance.
Safe distance.
And
yes.
I would name and shame them. I would send the photos to the papers.
Oh, send them to me.
Yeah. I would take the registration numbers.
Yeah.
And I think there'd be a lot of people that would be very ashamed, very frightened about it all. They don't want to be discovered. I think there's a lot of people that would be petrified of having their names revealed.
I think would you? How would you feel, Margaret, if it was you were named as having sex with a prostitute?
Most unlikely.
But if it happened?
If I was a councillor, a politician, a policeman, a doctor, I'd be terrified.
Yeah, Margaret, thank you very much indeed. Ian's in Bedford. Morning, Ian.
Morning, Ian. Morning.
Morning. Well, yeah, I'm all right, thank you. What should they do to stop this problem?
Well, I can't understand why the councillors are so involved with this. Surely it's a police matter. And what they did in Birmingham, because I'm from up near Birmingham, what they did, there was an area called Warsaw Heath, and they flooded the place with police, and they moved all the prostitutes and all the curb crawlers and all the drug dealers out. And the problem went. So why are the council trying to go in on long-term plans? Just get the police in there and kick them out.
It does. I mean, the argument that Andy and Roxana were making was that it's a long-term thing. There are a lot of people with drug issues and health issues and stuff like that, and you have to kind of get rid of the causes of the prostitution, and then that ultimately will get rid of the prostitutes. And listen, I can understand people with drug addictions and problems. I have every sympathy for them, but also I do have sympathy for the people that live in the street and they want the problem solved now, not in 5 years' time.
Absolutely. Well, it was done in Birmingham, so all they need to do is get in touch with West Midlands Police. They'll tell them how to do it. There was one road, and I know the name of the road, it was Speedwell Road. It was known throughout the Midlands. And what they did, I suppose the council were involved with this, it used to be a thoroughfare. They blocked it off one end. So all the curb crawlers, if they wanted to go and pick somebody up, they used to drive down Speedwell Road. They didn't used to be able to get out the other end. They used to turn around and had a police car waiting for them. What are you doing, sir? Why are you down here? And then it stopped. Simple.
Thank you very much for that, Ian. Well, we can put all that to Ollie Martins in the new year when he comes in. Flood the area with the police.
On FM, AM and online. BBC Three Counties Radio.
Morning. I'm in a good mood this morning. I don't know why. If you've ever listened to this show before, or listen regularly, you'll know I'm quite a grumpy person. I think it's the fact that I've got the best haircut ever. And seriously, I've got the best haircut ever. And it's made me in quite a sparky mood. It really has, lifted me a little bit. So, look, my team are writing. I thought you were going to say you had the best team ever, and that's why you were so poking. No, not at all. I would say, listen, I've done many radio shows. I would say this is probably the 6th, 7th best team I've ever worked with. So, well done, guys. No, I'm teasing. I'm teasing. Coming up in the next half an hour, lots of stuff, and you can give us a call on all of this, or most of it anyway. The broadcaster, Stuart Hall, has been charged with 3 counts of indecent assault on girls aged between 9 and 16. We'll find out why and what happens next. And if you travel on Virgin trains from Watford or Milton Keynes, guess what? You're still going to be travelling on Virgin for at least another 23 months. We'll tell you more about what's going on in the West Coast Main Line in the next 10 minutes.
Call 08459 455 555.
08459 455 555.
BBC Three Counties Radio.
The veteran broadcaster Stuart Hall has been charged with 3 counts of indecent assault on girls aged between 9 and 16. Mr. Hall used to present the long-running game show It's a Knockout. He's now 82 and is best known these days for his colourful football reports on BBC Radio 5 Live. Let's get more on this now with our reporter James Alexander. Morning, James.
Morning, Ian.
What more do we know about the accusations against Stuart Hall?
Yeah, these claims date back several decades. We've got a bit more detail from the Crown Prosecution Service about the alleged offences. They're said to have been committed in 1974 against a girl who was then 16 or 17, in 1983 against a girl aged 8 or 9, and in 1984 against a 13-year-old girl. On a further allegation of rape, Stuart Hall was released without charge.
Has this got anything to do with the Jimmy Savile investigation?
No, police keen to stress this isn't connected to the Jimmy Savile inquiry. Stuart Hall was arrested at his home in a leafy part of Cheshire yesterday morning. Officers searched the property. They took away several items. Mr. Hall was questioned by detectives through the day, and last night he was charged with these 3 counts of indecent assault.
Any reaction from Mr. Hall or his employers?
No word yet from Stuart Hall or his agent, no, but his employers, the BBC, have released a statement. They say in light of the very serious nature of these charges, Stuart Hall won't be working at the corporation while the police investigation goes on.
Now, we're both treading carefully because charges have been brought. We do have to legally, obviously, be careful about what we say. But Stuart Hall has been a popular character who's had a long and varied career.
Yeah, you probably remember him hosting It's a Knockout back in the 70s and 80s, a familiar face, a familiar voice, those distinctive plummy tones and that very exuberant presenting style. In recent years, he's become a bit of a cult figure for football fans. If you know his match reports on 5 Live on a Saturday afternoon, he has a rather florid, poetic way with words. He says he actually invented the phrase, the beautiful game. And earlier this year he was awarded an OBE for his services to broadcasting and charity.
When's he due to appear in court? What happens next?
Yeah, what happens next? He'll appear in court in the new year at Preston Magistrates on the 7th of January.
Thank you very much for that, James Alexander.
On FM, AM and online, BBC Three Counties Radio.
Andrew Carberry on the tweets, the tweet machine. It's a shame Watford is losing Waterstones, but the town still has W.H. Smith's and HMV, where you can buy new books in person. W.H. Smith's fascinates me. I used to love W.H. Smith's as a kid, partly because I was a proper geek, right? And I used to love my video games and my Spectrums and Commodores. And if Boots was busy on a Saturday morning, they had loads of games and consoles lined up. You go into Smith's next door and play on their Spectrum. I used to love Smith's. I was wandering through Smith's the other day, though, just thinking, I don't know what this shop is anymore. It's kind of a bit of everything and nothing really. It's got some DVDs, it's got some magazines, it's got a few books, it's got sweets, it's got sandwiches. What is W.H. Smith's? Ian, the last book I got from the bookshop was The Hunger Games from Rock Sausage. Phil says the last book I bought from a shop was 10 years ago, the autobiography of Motley Crue. Now there's a book. If you want, the Motley Crue book is one of the filthiest books I have ever read in my life. Okay, if you're over the age of 18 and you're passing a bookshop, go in, read the first paragraph. Yeah, it's all downhill from there. And Sea Fishing Techniques was my last book. Smells good too. Go and smell some old books and old records. Double albums, or oh man alive! My wife is out today. I got lunch with. I'm having lunch with my friend Clive, and then I'm just going to go home and sniff. I'm just going to rip my shirt off, and I'm going to throw books all over the floor and sniff like crazy. There's an image. There's an image that you thought you'd never have, and probably never wanted in your heads. Now, if you travel on Virgin trains from Watford or Milton Keynes. Guess what? Yes, you're still going to be travelling on Virgin for at least another 23 months. They will carry on running services on the West Coast Main Line. Virgin had been set to lose the West Coast franchise to First Group, but the deal was scrapped after Department for Transport faults were found with the bidding process. Andrew Pakes is Labour's parliamentary spokesman for Milton Keynes. Morning, Andrew.
Morning, Ian.
What's your reaction to this?
Well, I'm already in central London this morning, so, I know well that
thousands of people across the region rely on the trains every day. So I think, first up, this will be, an end to the uncertainty we've been facing since the start of this whole franchising mess earlier in the summer.
Will passengers notice any difference? Will it mean anything to them?
We appear to be being told that the government's going to continue with the rollout of the extra carriages. Virgin have said they're going to give us some improvement. So, fingers crossed that the level of service we generally see from Virgin will continue. But I have noticed that when this was all announced in the summer, the government were promising us a 15% cutting fares. That seems to have disappeared from this morning's announcement.
Oh, we've forgotten the 15% cut, have we? That's vanished.
Absolutely. We already know that if you're travelling from Milton Keynes as a commuter and your season ticket involves the tube, you're already now paying more than £5,000 a year.
Wow.
Most other commuters are paying £4,500 a year. I don't know about all your listeners, but I've been tightening my belt all year with rising costs, and my eyes do begin to water when I look at these fares, regardless of who runs the train.
You say £5,000 a year. That's a lot of money, isn't it? Andrew, so Virgin are going to be running it for another 2 years. Is that when the decision gets made on who actually takes over then?
It is. The government says it's going to start this whole retendering process again at some point in the next 2 years, so they can make an announcement from 2014 onwards. My big problem is that we got into this whole sorry mess, which appears to have cost taxpayers at least £40 million just to tidy up to this point so far, that the government's going to try and just repeat the same mistakes again. And I want some reassurance that they have learned the lessons from what's gone wrong, and that franchising isn't just about the lowest price that they can run the railways for. It's about putting passengers first and giving us all a bit of certainty about quality.
Andrew Pakes, we'll let you get on with your day. That's the Labour parliamentary spokesman for Milton Keynes. Now, earlier on in the show, and quite a lot recently, we've been talking about an area in Luton called Hightown, where the residents are really unhappy with the amount of crime and antisocial behaviour that's taking place. Drug using, prostitution seems to be the main thing that keeps getting mentioned. And some horrible stories of prostitutes having sex in the chute, the rubbish chutes. Well, I know, up against people's front doors. Families don't feel safe. Women who live there being asked if they're working. We had a couple of the councillors in there. We had Roxana Whitaker and Andy Malcolm came in earlier on. And we're kind of just wondering, well, what do you do? How do you stop all of that? Alison is in Luton. Morning, Alison.
Hiya.
You're a probation officer, are you?
Yes.
What would you suggest that is done to kind of stop all this prostitution that's making the residents' lives a misery?
Well, it's really difficult, isn't it? Because if you put a huge police presence in there, and stop all the curb crawlers, then the street worker's going to go somewhere else. And so that's really, really difficult. But I think you had a little bit of a go at the woman who was helping these street workers, because actually they're really vulnerable women.
Yeah.
And believe me, I feel really sorry for the people who have to suffer seeing all this stuff. It's really not nice. It's not nice for the children. It's not nice for the community. But these women are really, really vulnerable, and this in-reach work is helping them move away from that, which, can only help the community. But, huge police presence there constantly for a period of time will help, but then when they move off again, is it going to go back to how it was?
Listen, Alison, I do have sympathy with prostitutes. I certainly have sympathy with drug addicts and drug abusers. I've got friends who have been and are in that position.
Yeah.
I do have sympathy with prostitutes. And, of course, most of those women that are turning tricks on the street like that, they don't want to be there. They've got better things they would rather be doing. So I have sympathy with them. But also, I kind of... It's mixed, because I wonder what I would feel like if I lived there and I looked out of the window and could see prostitutes having sex. I wouldn't... I wouldn't want that. I wouldn't want to see that. And I guess I'm kind of falling more on the side of the residents, perhaps.
Yeah, and I think it's got to be balanced, isn't it? And it's quite an emotional subject for people who live in there, who see this on a day-to-day basis. But, finding them is going to just create more work for them, because most of them are living... Sometimes they're working to provide their drugs. Sometimes they're working through... other people forcing them to do that. So working with them to get them off the street although it's going to be a long-term solution, it is a solution.
But even if it's going to take years, that was the thing that confused me, that it could take years for that to happen, and that's not good enough for the people who live there, is it?
No, it's not, but anything that's going to work and be effective is going to take a long time. You know, having a police presence on there to change, you know, the way that street workers work, and also, you know, catching the curb crawlers, that's going to take a long time. Everything takes time.
Alison, you make a good point. Thanks for calling in.
Okay, thank you.
There we go, it's Alison in Luton. 0845, we got in touch with Alison. 08459 455 555 is the telephone number. If you want to give us a call about any of the things that we're talking about this morning. Sad news. There won't be any bookshops in Watford come Christmas Eve, other than charity ones. Waterstones is shutting down. All of the staff are going to lose their jobs. The company says they're being forced to close because of commercial reasons. But is it the end of the road for bookshops with the explosion of the internet, Amazon, Kindles, all of that stuff? Well, here's what these people in Watford think.
I read a lot, but I use Kindle.
Right, so I suppose for you don't go into bookshops anymore anyway?
No, not very often nowadays.
It doesn't surprise you then that another bookshop's closing?
No, it's not. Don't surprise me at all. You know, so many of them closing down everywhere.
It's an excellent bookshop, yeah. It means that there's not a bookshop.
So where will you...
Readers.
Well, this
Yes,
is it.
yeah.
Where do you go? What happens to you?
Because that's where I would normally go to buy a book. Yeah.
You do?
Yeah. I would be struggling because Smiths wouldn't have what I would be after.
They're very specialist, aren't they,
Yes.
I guess?
Yeah, so...
And what about Amazon? Don't fancy that?
I do, yes. I do use online, but if I don't know a book, I want to have a look. Yeah.
That's true.
So...
And why do you think Watford? Because there are others in the area, St Albans, Hitchin, they're still open. Why do you think here in Watford they're closing down? Illiterate people that just don't read, perhaps? Or?
Oh, I'd hope not. I'd hope not. I don't know why they've made that decision, but I'm saddened, yeah.
I don't buy books. I don't buy books. No. You go to the charity shop, buy a book.
Do you think that's what people do nowadays? They just
yes, I think so. I mean, yeah, because price of paperbacks or whatever. Yeah, I mean, go in there 50 pence.
Whereas you're looking at $6.99.
Yeah, you only read it once, don't you?
So you're not surprised that bookshops are going down the Swanee?
I didn't know that, actually.
Do you go there often?
Not that often, no, to be perfectly honest.
No.
I normally get my books online, but I think it's a shame.
Yes, no more bookshop other than second-hand shops now in the town.
Disappointing here, not good for the economy. Yeah, probably to go online with the internet and go to charity bookshops. I think so.
That's our reporter Serena Farrow talking to the people of Watford. Well, Claire Rayner is from St Albans. She runs a bookshop. She's also a retail expert. Good morning, Claire.
Good morning, but I don't run a bookshop.
Oh, do you not?
No.
Would you like to?
Not in the current climate,
Well,
no.
it's not looking good, is it? I don't know why that's on my screen. I apologise, Claire, but I've given you a bookshop. What's going on? Who's to blame for this?
Well, no one's really to blame it, apart from customers who've chosen to spend their money elsewhere. I mean, there are certain sectors like music, DVD, video game and books that it really doesn't matter where you buy it. It's exactly the same product. And with the rise of Amazon and all of the main chains taking their product online as well, including Waterstones, it's given us an alternative way to go and buy books that for many is a lot more convenient, can be cheaper, although, you know, weigh up the delivery costs and the delay. So we've changed our purchasing habits. It's not really a major surprise that these categories of shops, the books, the DVD, music and video, it's not a surprise they're closing.
I always tick the box for free delivery. I don't mind waiting 3 to 5 days if it's not costing me anything.
No, and when you're in a town centre environment, unless you absolutely need it now, which is unlikely with that kind of product, then you can wait. Of course, the areas where books sell particularly brilliantly are in places like the airports, where you're on your way to catch a plane and you think, I need something to read now. Darn, I've forgotten what I wanted. And you'll pick something up there and then. That's very much about impulse and immediacy.
I need that John Barrowman autobiography right now before I get on the plane to Prague.
That's right, so I'll be bored to tears on the aircraft.
Is it? Well, in that case, is this the beginning of the end for the high street? Because it's easier to get books and CDs and DVDs and video games online, and probably cheaper. Even I have started buying clothes online, Claire, and I swore I'd never do it.
Well, it isn't the beginning of the end for the high street, because the high street is a much different animal than just buying books.
Yeah.
We need to experience and enjoy products. Certain types of products need interaction. That's not to say, though, that the shops won't evolve into something else. A place where we either go and collect the orders we've transacted online, or a place where we go to inspect the product before potentially processing it on our mobile handset in the store. So there's a lot of change in the sector, and as consumers we're asking for a lot more from shops to give us experience and introduce products and give us advice and brilliant service. So those shops will just change their role, and we will still want to visit them.
Do you think independent bookstores will do better than the big ones like Waterstones?
Those that really have a particular niche and focus, I think, do really well. And they do pick their locations carefully. So you see some brilliant smaller independent bookshops around the universities, for instance, selling books that particularly wouldn't be listed in the big chains because they don't have enough volume of sale. But you can buy them in the niche independent stores because they know their customers so well. And kids' bookshops are particularly good because they'll do things like story time and colouring experiences. And so parents will visit them for the whole experience, and they'll buy the books because they want to support them and keep them present. And that's the difference.
You're right. There's a cracking kids' bookshop that's opened up near us, and we went in there and said, what on earth are you doing opening a bookshop? You know, but they've got so many great things on there. They sell coffee for the mums and dads, they have free reading sessions, they have authors going in, and it's things like that. And also, that's
the future of the high street, isn't it? It's the experience. It's making it sociable and fun. And of course, then you'll buy from them because you don't want them to disappear.
Yeah. Claire, thank you very much. I'm sorry I suggested that you might be one of those people that would own a bookshop. How rude of me.
I've written a book, but I don't own a bookshop.
Well, there you go. Claire, thank you very much for coming. That's Claire Rayner. And can I just say for the record, she does not own a bookshop, and she never will. Well, maybe she will, but she probably won't. She is a retail expert, though. Let's have a look and see what we've got here. Andy in Chesham has emailed in about Hightown, that we were talking about earlier on. Prostitution has gone on forever. So why do you expect the councillors to solve the problem in weeks or months? Options. Why not video the prostitutes, and in particular their punters, and put it on the internet? Name and shame. A proper police presence on the street will move the women on, but only shift the trade elsewhere. Why not regulate prostitution? If the unfortunate ladies are regulated, they can be protected from violent pimps, screen for illness, help with drug addiction and saved from forced prostitution. Regulated prostitution can be taxed, with revenue raised, paying for better conditions. It's a Victorian prudity that keeps controversial but effective methods from being considered. Men want to buy sex, and women, for many reasons, satisfy the need. The urgency is to improve women's financial position so they're not forced into trade. I'm not against prostitution. I'm not at all. And I have the greatest sympathy and the greatest empathy for these poor women that are forced to do it in those conditions. But, you know, I've got to kind of think, how would I feel if that was happening out on my street? We really are flipping all over the place today, and I love it when it's like this. 2 Australian radio DJs impersonated the Queen and Prince of Wales to trick hospital staff into giving them an update on Kate Middleton's condition. Well, reporter Jessica Cooper spoke to people in Luton this morning to find out whether they thought it was funny or outrageous.
Basically, I think that was wrong, definitely, and if it would be my personal issue or problem, I would be really disappointed about it, because it's kind of personal life. Everybody wants to have, some secrets. I mean, we all do. So it is definitely wrong. It's definitely wrong. I would definitely be disappointed, very disappointed if it happened to me.
Are you surprised, given the stature that Kate Middleton is, that she's a member of the royal family now, that the people were able to get through and find out the information about her?
That's really bad. As I'm saying, all the royal information should come out from them whenever they want it. That's really sounds wrong for me, because people never know for themselves. Is it how it's going to happen? And so yeah. I think it's definitely wrong.
I think it was a bit foolish. No harm done. Personally, I think the nurse was a bit naive. Simple as that. You don't get Queen and Prince Charles doing that sort of thing. So.
How would you feel, though, if it was a member of your family and that happened?
Probably laugh. Because I really think it's a harmless thing. A bit foolish. It depends. People are more sensitive than others. But no harm done, and I think the nurse is a wee bit naive at the end of the day.
Really appalling. They do it all the time, the Aussies, so it's just poor. We shouldn't go there ever again.
When have they done it before, then?
I think there was something in the paper a year or 2 ago that they phoned somebody up. I don't know who it was, I can't remember, but they did do it before. I certainly remember. Was it the England manager or something like that? So they got history, so...
What do you think about hoax calls in general? Are they ever funny?
No.
But a lot of people are quite divided on this. Some people think that it is quite a good joke.
Yeah, until it's done on them, then it's not so funny. So I just think it's bad.
I do love that Prince. That's who we need. A prince like that would surely lead. And we did not get, and we were touting for it all morning, and I really thought we would. We didn't get an Australian to phone in and apologise to this great nation for mocking and indeed offending not just the Duchess of Cambridge, not just Prince William, but all of us. Each and every one of us in this country has been violated by this ridiculous attempt at, in inverted commas, humour. And not one Australian had the guts to pick up the phone and call in and apologise. Shameful. Absolutely shameful. There we go. That was fun, wasn't it? Had some good bits and pieces in there. Little argument, a little laughter. What more could you want from the breakfast show? Back tomorrow at 6 o'clock. Do keep listening, though, because the excellent JVS is up next. Ta-ta.
Getting beds, hearts and bucks talking.
This is BBC Three Counties Radio.
Thank you, Iain.